Now that we got that out of the way, me just being like, what the hell is like going on?
It's like a real production, y'all.
Yeah, it does. It's crazy.
It's always a real production. What are you talking about?
It has always been a real
right.
production. We've never had any issues.
There's no fake production.
Oh, you are correct. I'm
Definitely
sorry.
in the last episode, we had 0 issues.
None.
Yeah, just check it in. How are you guys doing? How have you guys been? I know Rob has been playing Rebirth.
I am exhausted.
Oh, and you've been doing the Collective Con.
Yeah,
thing.
Collective Con, playing Rebirth.
Mhm.
What are we doing at Collective Con?
So our friend Ryan at RCB Draws on Twitter and Instagram has a booth there.
Shout out to Ryan.
That's Ryan. This is his first like big convention. Right?
Oh, okay.
His first like 3-day event, right? He's done some of the pop-up markets, like pop-up market and stuff like that. So I went there just to kind of like, emotional support. Kind of like watch the table if he needs to get up or grab food from him, just help him out there.
That's a big help.
Right. And it's day 2. And he's done really well. Like there's been like quite a few sales and he's doing good.
I heard he's at least broken even, but it's like more than that,
But
right?
it's more than that.
Yeah,
So like
awesome.
we're
Profit?
yeah. So
He's profiting. From it.
RCB stocks on the rise.
Yeah, get your RCB stocks right now.
It's the first time I've been to Collective Con.
Is it? Where's that?
It's downtown.
In the
Prime Osborne?
Prime Osborne?
Prime Osborne, yeah.
I was just there last weekend.
Oh, was you?
Yeah, for the home and patio show.
That is.
I'll be there next weekend for the Women's Business Expo.
Oh my God.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
The separate podcasts for different things on the rise.
Hey guys, we're live at the small.
A different like nerdcast for Rob, and then me
Right.
home and design.
You with your Bucky's hat and the
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, so good. All right, well, but yeah, how do you feel about the con?
It's pretty cool. It's there's a pretty good turnout but it doesn't feel like we're cramped. You know what I mean? It feels like a really good like sweet spot in terms of attendance. Lot of I wasn't sure how much anime would be here because like when I think of Collective Con, I think okay, it's just like a generic like Comic-Con that's not anime focused. Is it a mixture of everything?
Like MegaCon?
Like MegaCon, right? Like what am I walking into, right? And it's a healthy mix of like everything, which was nice to see, right? It's just like all nerd fandoms just come together and like there's no like animosity or anything between, I'm a Western comic book stan, fuck anime, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, oh, we all like this nerd shit. So like, let's just hang out and have a good time. So it's good vibes so far. Like I enjoy it.
Usually non-hotel based cons are not usually like that.
Yeah.
So it's cool that they're actually having like a good community experience.
Yeah.
At a convention center con.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a pleasant surprise. So we'll see how day 3 goes. But
have you seen any good anime cosplays?
I'll say there's a lot of Demon Slayer, of course. But I saw some good free rent cosplays.
Oh, snap.
Saw a couple of free rents. Himmel was walking around. I don't know.
The hero,
Himmel.
The hero used to love Collective Con.
Yeah, no Fern. There was 0 Ferns, but there were several Starks, and I was like, we're missing the pairing here.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for like family cosplays. Like that is just something that just warms my heart, right?
Yeah.
So we had I saw a bunch of different families. It's just like, oh, this is like the Naruto group, right? Like the dad is Jiraiya, and they're like, yeah.
Oh, I like
that's
that.
Naruto. Like the sister is Sakura.
I like
the
that a
mom
lot.
is Kushina. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, oh, this is just like warming my heart. You know, I love seeing that stuff.
Yeah.
Or other parents that are just like supportive of their kids, just doing all this stuff here. I was like, okay, this is nice. So good cosplays. There was some tournaments. I didn't compete in anything, though I probably should have because I hear it was pretty free.
Shake my damn.
I know, right? I was too busy helping my friend run a booth. I couldn't go take the con kids' money, but it's maybe next.
The con kids' money.
Maybe next time, y'all. It's a great pastime. But yeah, it's a good convention.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Jenny? Anything interesting?
Just working on a lot of creative projects actually. So
Mhm.
I had Derek voice
Oh yeah.
the anime that I'm writing out, or rather getting produced, or I guess self-producing.
Mhm.
And there's this really cool website called Seven Labs that will take voice clips and translate them into another language.
Mhm.
So you can actually use the voices that they have pre-record, just write sentence, whatever you want to say, and it'll do a pretty good job of like putting emotion to it. But it's AI, so it's doing its best to kind of say it. But it can sound very like commercial scripty.
Sure.
But when you use an actual voice, it translates it from there, and it sounds like the way it pauses, and it's just that voice, but translated somehow to another language. So I am going to take Derek's voice and translate into Japanese along with my own.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have people who do speak Japanese like review it for accuracy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
But like paired with like music and stuff, it just sounds so cool. It's so fun.
Hmm.
I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
And then I've actually been playing music again with Paul. Our band will be playing a lot more practices coming up. I have a song that I wrote too.
Oh hell yeah. Original music.
Ayo.
And it's kind of melodic rock, which is not something I've really done a lot of. I've done a lot of like heavy piano instrumental stuff.
Yeah.
But this is like I made a guitar riff, and then it's just kind of been very melodic, which is kind of inspired by the music I'm listening to lately.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's like kind of the stuff that I'm doing, because I don't want to talk about work.
I completely understand. Okay. Well, sounds like you guys are staying active. I love that.
What about you?
Me?
You.
Lots of Magic. Just lots of Magic the Gathering. Now that I have income. I'm back to my bullshit hobbies.
He's
Fallout
back, baby.
came out today. Magic the Gathering Fallout came today. So their commander sets dropped. I think the 4 commander... I remember 3 of the commanders. One is Mothman. So people love that. Dogmeat. And then... you don't know Dogmeat? Did you play Fallout 4? No, 3.
I watched
4?
somebody play through Fallout 3 and 4.
Oh, okay.
So I don't really remember Dogmeat. I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
You've seen clips of Dogmeat. You probably have.
I'm
It's
sure.
the dog. It's just the dog.
Oh, it's just the dog?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you've seen Dogmeat.
Okay.
Everybody posts the funny clips of Dogmeat.
Okay.
And then Caesar from Fallout New Vegas. And then there's one more. I want to say it's like from Fallout 3 or something like that. But I definitely want to get them. I just haven't been able to. So yeah, I've been working on that, and then like getting back into the swing of things now that I have a source of income and like blocks of times that I have to like work around. It's like,
Right.
all right, how do I learn how to manage time? It's getting acclimated to
That's
all
the fun
that.
part. You don't.
Spoilers. Never. I know.
But very excited to get Unicorn Overlord. Very ready to play that game. Probably my most anticipated game this year.
I have not heard a single bad thing about it.
That's it. That's awesome.
Yeah. It has been glowing reviews.
I am surprised that you have none of the localization goons in your Twitter.
Well,
That rules.
I mean, there's always going to be localization goons in every release, but we
Hate
don't
those guys.
We don't listen to them.
Yeah,
What
we
is
don't
that?
listen to them.
What is
So,
localization?
do you believe that when like you're watching anime, should it be translated exactly, or should it be localized for like the American audience? Like if it changes the sentence.
I think exactly. I prefer that,
Interesting.
because I kind of get bothered when I'm like, it changes what they're saying,
Mm-hmm.
and now the meaning is lost. But I've always been a person about words, which is like now I'm like watching enough anime to the point where I can see what they're saying, and like and hear it, and then read the translation. And go, that's not what they said.
So that's a conversation.
Okay.
I'm more on the other side.
Yeah.
There's a way to do localization that like still retains the meaning.
Sure.
Right.
Correct. And that's bad. It's bad localization when it doesn't.
When it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, like a lot of the people on like social media, it's like let's have the bad faith argument, right? And it's like they don't really understand what they're talking about, and they just snap for the sake of being mad. And it is a consistent discourse that happens on every single game that comes from Japan now.
Correct.
So it's just like anytime I see it on my timeline, like my eyes just kind of like glaze over. This shit again.
So dumb.
No, I would never.
Right.
I like the creative direction and independence that you have too when you can localize.
I think it is an art. I think it is an art.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Oron Host Club, the English dub, is a localization, I guess, because it's very Western. I'm sure that energy is exactly what it's supposed to be.
Right.
And in fact, it makes it more accessible to a wider audience if they can kind of make it more relatable.
Right.
The way they would speak and think and talk.
Right.
There are jokes. I know this is annoying. There are jokes in like 100 Girlfriend that I'm like, this line of dialogue. This line of dialogue is definitely what they said. Definitely not what they said in original Japanese. And I'm like, they're quoting Lord of the Rings right now. I'm sure they like are doing like a different like book for this line because I don't hear anything that sounds even remotely like close to it. The joke is infinitely more funny for me.
Right.
I think everyone knows Lord of the Rings over here.
Because it's probably like an obscure book that like only the Japanese audience would know.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Like, how do you relate that to the Western audience?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Right?
like a context there.
Yeah.
Right. There's a context.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's like part of the brilliance of localization, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I
think the only things that like bother me would be like name changes. That annoy me because that's something I actively like hear. And like if someone is saying, "Oh, their name is Sasuke," but like you're reading the subtitle and it says Tim, and I'm like, now my brain is getting confused. And I'm just like, who is Tim?
Yeah, who's Tim?
Who are we talking about right now?
But what if it's like so clear that it's almost like a joke that they like nail it? So like a good example is Phoenix Wright.
Oh yeah. Phoenix Wright.
Phoenix Wright, yes.
So I feel like this is so hypocritical, right? Because it's like I'm okay with that, but that's also like.
But they also lean into it.
But also like I'm so used to reading Phoenix Wright because like Phoenix Wright isn't voiced.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I'm reading it for like all these years, right?
Yeah.
So I'm so used to calling him Phoenix Wright at this point.
Yeah.
So like when I watch like the live action movie or whatever,
and
they say what's it, Ryunosuke Naruhodo?
Yeah, it's Ryunosuke Naruhodo.
It's like it just doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
to be fair, all the characters are named ridiculous.
They're ridiculous, right?
Like, in their English
and I will say, like the localization team does a great job with that too, because
they're
like,
insane for it.
Because like Naruhodo's name in Japanese is like a pun,
yeah,
right? And it's like effectively Phoenix Wright is like the equivalent to that.
It is a pun. And they just don't stop. Like they're absolutely unhinged about it, right? Like they'll be eating a bowl of ramen and it's like, this burger is delicious. And it's like, what?
They lean into it in a way that is just very comical.
Yeah. It's like absolutely crazy.
So
and it developed its own weird fan base.
Yeah. So that's kind of like a weird like asterisk. Like this is kind of special. But in general, like the name changes would bother me.
Ooh, I actually just saw a recent thing about Pokemon animated US and then Japan.
Yeah.
And like even like the food that they would be eating would be like a burger in the American one, but for Japan it's like onigiri.
The rice ball versus the jelly donut.
Oh my god, the jelly donut! That's what they called the rice balls.
Yeah.
They called it
this jelly donut tastes delicious, and you're like, that's not.
That's ever since I was a kid. I was like, oh, that's weird. You know, like I'm an 8-year-old and I'm like, it's weird that they call that a jelly donut. That must be a jelly donut.
I mean, we have gummies that look like, everything, like a hot dog.
Right. It's just really funny.
Yeah.
So, like, that's, it's funny that I, like, brought up Unicorn Overlord because, like, that's certain, any game from Japan, that's
the discourse, but mute all of that.
Silent Hill, is that a American line or is that...
It's Japanese. It's Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Japanese. Mm-hmm. Although the new one is Bluebird team and they're European.
Yeah, European team.
European. So
interesting.
Why?
Because it had tones that made me think of Japanese like storytelling. And so I was kind of curious, like, I wonder if that was localized too in the I guess English.
Right.
I mean, voice acting and I know. I feel like I'm gonna have to get another one too soon.
Another drinky?
Yeah.
I understand.
But yeah, I felt like that had some localization tones in it that made it, I guess, the story more American. But I also felt like it felt there was a disconnect somewhere.
Yeah.
In the story, I don't know. Now knowing that it is Japanese, I was like, oh, maybe
We're gonna have
maybe that wasn't a good localization then.
We're gonna have a Silent Hill game that's not in Silent Hill America and is in Japan, which makes weird sense to me. I don't know. What does that mean?
Silent Hill F. I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm excited about it.
Me too. It's being written by Ryokishi Zero, I think his name is.
Yes.
So he does he's written
Psychopaths?
No, not Psychopaths.
Okay.
When the Seagulls Cry.
Okay.
It is a horror mystery anime. I really like it. It's kind of out there. I won't tell you it's like fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It is a ride though. And it is one that I definitely like recommend at least checking out to see if you're interested in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of death in that one, and it's very good.
You're saying it in such a way you really like this.
I am a freak for Uminaka. But
it's a visual novel?
It is a visual novel first, and then it has an anime adaptation that I think is 26 episodes.
Is it any good?
The visual novel or anime?
Anime.
Anime is good. It doesn't cover everything though.
Oh, as is the case with visual novel adaptations.
Because the anime came out when the visual novel was still being like produced.
Okay.
Right? So it probably covers like half of it. And if I remember correctly, I think it even just has like an anime original ending to it. But I mean, it was still a good watch. That's what got me into it. And then I went to go read the visual novel.
Noise, I'm popping open a can. Watch out.
All this ASMR happening.
Don't forget to crack open a cold one with your friends.
I did also, I mean, we're not at Nakama right now, so I can't like just guzzle down sake. I did pick back up Memento Mori.
Oh, okay.
Have you been playing Memento Mori still?
I haven't played it in a little bit. I keep up with it though.
Yeah.
The music is fucking killer.
Yeah, it's back to it. Have you heard of Memento Mori? Mm-mm. It's like a AFK game. Because I wanted like an AFK game.
What's an AFK game?
Away from keyboard, like I can just leave it there and it'll play itself.
What?
It autoplays.
That's a thing?
Autoplays. Yeah. I want the happy numbers to go up.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah. And so like, but it's a very gorgeous. It's like, it looks like all water painting, like art style. And it uses like live 2D, which is like the same technology for like VTubers and stuff like that. And it's just like anime gorlies, and it's got a witch theme, and it's a gacha. So of course I like it. But the music is peak. It's like the best part of the game, followed by the watercolor, like kind of aesthetic.
That's cool.
There's some character stories that are like really good.
They're really good. Yeah. Some are better than others.
Some are better than others, right? Like they're not all going to be winners, but there's a lot of them in there that I just like. Mm-hmm. I really dug into, and it's like short, like little 5 chapters for each character.
Exactly.
It's like these little short stories that they like, that they're like telling their story, like they're narrating.
And you learn like how they became a witch,
right?
Essentially, there's one really interesting one. The what's her name? She's got the Irish sounding song. And she's essentially a nun, and but at the end of the day, she was like excommunicated for like being a witch. But her faith is so strong, and I like found that riveting and tragic. Yeah. So like, really cool game.
There's another character that's tied to her as well that she's like best friends with.
Oh.
That, like, digs into that more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. So I'm back on that because I wanted a game like that.
For sure.
But yeah, I'd say that's pretty much it. Oh wait, Dungeon Meshi. I'm caught up on Dungeon Meshi. Oh. You guys heard of Dungeon Meshi? Did I talk about it last time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you recommended it because, we love it.
It's getting better. Yeah. Like, it's even better. Like, now.
I haven't started it yet, but it is high on my list to watch.
Big fan of, like, some of the more recent episodes because now we're getting more into, like, it used to be just, like, meal of the week. Mm-hmm. And it still is. But now we're getting into the meat of, like, complexity with their situation. Because do you know the general plot?
Not really.
Like, so the reason they are eating stuff from the dungeon is because like they wiped at like a big red dragon, essentially. And the main guy's sister got eaten by the dragon. So she didn't die immediately, so she didn't respawn with all of them. She's getting digested.
Damn.
And essentially they're like, we have to go back in and we have to save her. So it's been really fun watching my sister, because obviously like we're a brother and sister, and I would go back into the dungeon to save my sister. And like, but guess what? They don't have any money. So they can't just like buy food and then like go into the dungeon. And so like the main guy, who's a little bit of a freak, is like, but what if we ate the monsters in the dungeon? And then like a lot of them are like, absolutely fucking not. We're not going to stoop to that level. And then they leave the party. They just straight up leave the party.
Damn,
and then
cowards.
like other people are like, yeah, we'll do it, but we're not happy about it. You know, like, and it's really neat because like they run back into some of those characters that left. And like, it is interesting to hear because like some of them kind of like are two sides of the same coin. So like the rogue character is with the party still. And they're like, you are the least likely person I imagined would stay with the party because you do it for the money. And he's like, I'm staying with the party because I do it for the money. And it's like, what does he mean by that? And then like another character who left the party shows back up later, and she's like, well, they can pay me and you guys can't. And it's a different like context of like the money situation. And then I don't know, just kind of like adds depth to the situation and how these characters feel towards the person who they're trying to save. And I'm like, whoa, there's substance here. It's not just like food of the week.
Right.
And I think that rocks.
Yeah, I was totally just assuming food of the week.
I do too.
No, it's not just that.
Which I would be okay with.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely. That's what I was expecting.
So
that's what I'm expecting, and I would have been
pleasant
fine.
surprise.
Yeah,
you know,
very awesome. So like now I'm gonna start pushing it.
Okay,
because now it's just like I would just throw it out there that it's like, oh, this is a food of the week show, and if you want to get comfy, let's fucking do it.
Right.
You know, like, but now it's like, wait, there's like character dynamics at play here that you would see in the more dramatic readings of like a D&D game. And it is interesting. Like the people who go out of their way to actually develop like interesting characters. There's still wacky, goofy gremlins.
Of course.
Like anybody would be in a D&D game.
Right.
But then like there are really good like story beat moments. And I was like, sick. So sick. And also the English dub is pretty good. They have Pro ZD, this dwarf character in there. And then Emily Rudd from the One Piece live action is the elf girl. And I was like, whoa, she's really like leaning into the anime thing.
Has she done other anime?
No, I don't think so.
No, this is just it. Okay.
Yeah. So like post One Piece, she's riding that wave.
Hell yeah.
You fucking go, Emily Rudd. Like, and yeah, my sister and her girlfriend are watching it in dub. So I get to like watch it in Japanese with my sister.
Right.
And then like when they're hanging out, I'll come downstairs and I'll be like, oh, they're watching the English dub, and I'll like be eating and I'll watch it too. And I'm like, oh wow, they're doing a really good job localizing it. Shout out to localization.
He gave me like a little.
We went full circle here. So yeah, that's really the only other anime I watch, because the anime we're about to talk to today takes a lot out of me. Like what? I don't
sound like
know.
it was draining.
It is draining. I mean that in a good way. Interestingly enough, because I think during it,
I would say draining.
I didn't think it was draining. I thought it was invigorating.
Because during it, I wasn't sure.
Huh? What's that mean?
I like there are moments in it where I'm like, do I like this? Especially like so like after thinking about it, it's interesting when I do my thing with like certain anime, because I write a ton of notes. I like go through every episode. I have a book of notes for like every anime that like we've been watching. You can see my scatterbrained like collection of words on these like pieces of paper.
That's going to be a Patreon goal one day. Asher's notes.
Asher's notes, yeah. Just see this like trash, this chicken scratch. What's it called? And now that I've like compiled my thoughts, there is like a problem that I have a little bit with the last episode.
Oh
so, like,
my gosh.
So I'm like excited to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think it is brilliant. like as I got more into the pieces of it, I was like, oh my god, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. So I'm gonna now we're gonna get into the Pluto segment for those, unless anybody has anything else to talk about.
Yeah.
I would love to just dive on into
we can dive on
classic anime sci-fi. And I always have to open up with the question that I always bring up for every episode. Why did you pick Pluto, Rob?
I picked Pluto mostly because my friend Max, he often recommends books or manga stuff for me to read.
Sure.
And then I'll be like, I'll add it to the list, and then I probably never get to it.
Yeah. It's a classic situation.
You know,
nobody's...
Yeah,
so much.
Yeah, there's so much out there, right? And so little time. But I know everything that he recommends me, and like Max.
I know
like
Max.
he'll give you like a pitch, and it's just like, yo, this sounds really fucking good.
Yeah.
Right. So like I know I'm in for at least a good time. I'm probably going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So he recommended me to read Pluto. Like this was from like 5 years ago or something like that, before we even knew an anime adaptation was coming.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I was like, that sounds interesting. Sure, I'll put it on the list. Just never got to it. And then they announced the anime adaptation. And he was like, you might not have to read it.
Yeah.
We'll see how this pans out. Maybe you could just watch it. And I'm like, that's easier for me to digest. It came out. Raving reviews. Everybody liked it. Yeah. He watched it. He's like, this is like 1 for 1. Like, get on it. I was like, cool.
Yeah.
And then we talked about starting this back up, and I was like, I'll just save it for the cast. I think that'll just be a great conversation.
Oh my god.
And you know, I've heard tales of like Pluto and some of the other works that this whole like team has done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's highly regarded. It's like considered to be like one of the best sci-fi things that are out there in terms of anime, right? In manga space. So I was like, let's do it.
Did you know that Pluto was a story that was told already?
I did not learn that until afterwards.
You did not learn that until afterwards?
Yeah, because I looked it up. I didn't learn that until like this, I think it was this morning or last night or something like that, where I was just kind of like going through the wiki and just looking up some more stuff about it. And I was like, oh, this was an arc that was already done.
It was already done.
Retold.
It's retold and added like a lot more context.
It was a lot more than just a retelling, I think.
It's a lot more.
Yeah.
It's a lot more. It's a re-envisioning.
Yes. That's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
That's a better way to put it.
So I can't even say it even tells the same story based on what you told.
Yeah. So I went down a rabbit hole, and it was part of the brilliance that I like found in it, like post watching it, was talking to Max about it.
Okay.
Because it was like, I was like explaining to him, I was like, it's really fascinating that this is an old story.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating that, and the original story was called The Greatest Robot on Earth.
Yes.
And it has like similar beats. You know, Pluto is created. Pluto is killing some of the most powerful robots on Earth. And then like the villain turn at the end. But the complex layers involved, it's not a murder mystery. Pluto's a murder mystery, right?
Yeah.
And the original is just like, oh, there's Pluto. He's a big bad evil robot. I'm killing this guy, and Astro Boy can't stop me. And then, you know, I'm gonna kill the next guy, and you can't stop me. There's no like crime solving thing until like and then at the finale, Astro Boy is like, I'm Astro Boy, and I have a big heart, and you gotta stop. And Pluto's like, you're right. And then he does like the swap, you know, like it
the power of anime.
Yeah, exactly. But
Friendship.
Pluto is Pluto is wild. But it's a wild like reimagining of that sequence of events.
Yeah.
And honestly, hearing that pitch from you said it was at the same world as Astro Boy.
That's how I always heard it, because I don't know much about it. Right?
Had no idea. It is literally Astro Boy.
Literally an arc out of Astro Boy.
Yeah, like, it's literally an arc out of Astro Boy.
You know?
Do either of you have any like history with Astro Boy?
Not really. Like
No?
I've seen a little bit here and there, but there's no like strong attachment to it.
Yeah.
Like I'm more interested in watching it. Even before we did this, because we was talking about like anime LPs and stuff like that.
Yeah, we talked
and kind of went down a rabbit hole
Yeah.
about it. So I'm like, Astro Boy is kind of like on a list of me to like, I should just go check this out. This kind of like makes me want to go check it out a little bit more.
Yeah, so
dive a little deeper.
So part of that conversation with Max is that like what I think finds so riveting, and I kind of realize this even more now with the intro of the show, because the intro of the show does the Marvel thing, right?
It does.
Yes.
It does the comic book page flip thing, and then like Pluto title card like shows up.
Yeah.
It is like American comic books. These older classic tales of like Batman or Superman reimagined in Chris Nolan's mind, or reimagined in, you know, Zack Snyder's mind. But that's kind of what they did with Pluto. And I was like, oh my God, you're right.
It's interesting hearing that.
Yeah.
Because I've had this conversation with Max. Funny, Max is coming up a lot. The special guest Max.
Shout out to
here.
Max has been with us the whole time.
I'm just going to Photoshop him on the side. But like, I've had conversations with him about like, I'm not big into like Western comics, but one thing that I do really appreciate about them is that like you have different runs of these same characters.
Yeah.
So like
it's a whole mythology.
Yeah. So like somebody comes in and is like, hey, I have an idea for Spider-Man, right? And it's like, this is their run of it and this is their version of it. And then another person comes in, it's like, I have a different idea of it, you know? And then we get like Miles Morales, and you know what I mean?
Yep.
And there's sometimes where like I look at anime and I'm just like, I wish we would have the same over here in some ways.
Yeah.
Just like I would like to see a different take of like Naruto or something, like where somebody did a different arc for Dragon Ball.
Got you. Baruto.
Oh, Naruto. Yes, absolutely.
God.
But I find that so interesting.
I mean, they kind of did that with Avatar, right? You had Avatar, and then you also had followed by Legend of Korra, which had that same feel where we're talking about Astro Boy as, you know, this Pluto was talked about that, but they don't even say that it is Astro Boy.
Right.
And they keep that, they may keep those conversations separate for that reason. They don't want anyone to come in with the thoughts of, oh, I'm just going to watch another episode of Astro Boy.
Right.
Same thing with Legend of Korra. Don't think you're watching Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Correct.
They will have cameos. They will be references, but they are not the main plot. This is a completely different story.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like that. I think there's an intent behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting to see the original designs of these characters. I was talking with Jenny about it before the cast, but I didn't want to go too much into it because I didn't want to I want to save it for the cast.
Content, baby.
Right? Like, I want to save it for content. And it's just like the original designs of like
emphasized con. Content. Like, are we going to a con? Like, what?
I've been to a con.
Rob's going back to the con tomorrow.
Oh yeah, going back.
The kind of like direction to not only keep, I guess, the backgrounds of these characters in Pluto, like the story beats the same, but also like from a character design standpoint, what they decide to do. Have either of you seen the original characters from the original arc of Astro Boy?
No, I know nothing of Astro Boy.
North number 2, fascinating. Super interesting. Actually, this is a question.
Okay.
Do either of you have a favorite of the great robots, quote unquote?
I asked Paul the same question today.
What did Paul say?
He said Geshet.
Gesich? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which means face. It means face, which is really interesting. Did you have a favorite?
I did.
Who is it?
Honestly, I think it was Epsilon.
It's Epsilon.
Yeah. Epsilon stands rise. Let's go.
Epsilon stocks rising. Are you also Epsilon?
That would be really weird if I said no, huh?
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past you though, man.
They're good.
Really?
Yeah,
I think they're all good.
Really good.
They are. I am a big Epsilon fan, though.
Yeah? Epsilon number 1 out of the great robots.
Yes.
It's funny because Epsilon is also my number 1.
Oh,
damn it!
And
we have something in common.
Oh my God!
How did that happen?
This never happens.
Well, welcome to the final episode of the JSB Anime Cast.
And honestly,
we go home now.
And honestly,
on something.
It's great that we all agree on that because it is one of the more interesting character design changes from the original.
Really?
So in the original, his name was Photar, I think.
Which goes along with his
energy, right?
Yeah.
Like he's the one robot that uses photon energy is like the big deal. They redid this arc in like the 80s or something.
North number 2 original.
Oh,
wild, right?
Way different. Yeah.
Wild to see. And Photar was changed into a woman for the 80s run.
Yeah.
And renamed Epsilon. And then when Pluto came out, changed back into a man, but turned into Bishonen.
Yeah.
So it has like androgynous, effeminate features. So they retain that kind of like character history of like, this character has gone through like both genders and is kind of like in this middle ground.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating for his character because he is also arguably the only character that is filling both of the traditional family gender roles by being the parental figure to orphans, the single parent to orphans. Blew my mind. Like, absolutely, like, riveting. I was just like doing all this research and I was connecting the dots. I was doing this stuff. I was like looking at the wall and I was like, holy shit. Like, Epsilon is like so fucking cool because like Epsilon fulfills these like things. And I don't know, it's just like an interesting character. The one robot that didn't want to fight.
What?
But probably the robot that will like, man, could have easily killed Pluto.
But
it's too that scene drove me insane. Like as like Epsilon was like dying, I was just like, oh man. And he's just like, what's happening? The vision of like the kids and stuff, and I was like, what is happening? What am I seeing?
The hand that was still out.
Yeah, oh my god, dude. Bro. Such a cool. Oh man, what a cool.
The way that whole sequence was animated too is just like.
Yeah, they experimented there.
Oh yeah.
With that one, yeah, like just it right because like that scene looks so different from like the rest of it.
I guess, but it's also they actually hadn't talked about the energies at this point.
Yeah.
And like what was the tech? Honestly, it was like way later they start talking about assigning the scientific breakthroughs that are of this world. Right. So you know how we were talking about Charlotte and those that I guess studio has a thing about giving this like long but like very complex world building thing. Yes. Yeah. But as soon as the world is built, there are no other rules.
Right. Yeah.
This one had like, all right, we're gonna tell you the world really quickly, but we have a lot of rules.
Yeah.
The whole thing's gonna tell you some new rules as we keep going.
Well, every time you got a new robot, it felt like there were new rules.
Yeah. And then when you find out that each one actually has its own creator, and it's like, well, that makes sense. That's like a different song to a different artist, and a poem to a different author.
Because Gessich was Zeronium. Right?
Yeah, that was his big thing. He was Captain America, but German.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Captain America, but German / main character of Blade Runner.
So I don't know a thing about Blade Runner, but that's the second time I've heard you say that. Can you explain that to me?
Okay, so Blade Runner is oh my god, where do I start with Blade Runner? I love Blade Runner.
Okay, I'll give you some time because I'm gonna refill my drink.
Okay,
Rob,
go.
Would you like to refill?
Yes.
Actually. Go refill your. Refill your drink. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to show some appreciation, some thoughts, some comments, because tragically on March 1st, one of the great creators of manga, of media, video games, say whatever, thing you want to say, unfortunately passed away at the age of 86. And that's Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball. Arguably any form of Japanese media this man has touched, and he has had such a profound impact on a lot of people's lives. So, I want to dedicate a segment to see how each member of the cast feels, or if they were impacted in some way, if they want to share anything, just an opportunity to share anything, if they felt some type of way about this individual. And no, for me, I'm not the craziest DBZ fan, but I cannot deny its impact. There's certainly a sequence of events where arguably I don't make this podcast because of Akira Toriyama. Before I even got involved with the FGC, I remember seeing one of my close friends, Xavier, competing in Dragon Ball FighterZ. At the time, I worked in Atlanta as a filmmaker, and I saw in the distance my friend Xavier in Jacksonville competing in this fighting game. And I like this fighting game because I, like a lot of people, grew up on Dragon Ball. And I was heavily invested in the Dragon Ball fighting game. It's through that appreciative throughway of that video game that when I would eventually return to Dragon Ball and decide to get involved with the fighting game community, who would I run into? Xavier, who I appreciate for playing Dragon Ball FighterZ. And I would meet everybody else that I now hang out with today, including like a co-host, Rob. So even though it's like a little thing, there's certainly situations where I still meet Rob, I still hang out with Xavier, I still meet everybody that I did. I can't help but feel like even that little thing has a little bit of influence, and it would not have like happened if I didn't go home after school excited to watch the next episode of the Frieza saga, the next episode of the Cell saga, and even like my new job that I just started. We bought a bunch of tickets to watch the latest Dragon Ball movie, Dragon Ball Superhero. My boss is one of the people that I saw that movie with, that like large group of people. I actually, was talking to him the other day, and I was like, yeah, I watched Dragon Ball Super, and it was like this whole thing, and then he had to like cut me off and be like, I was there with you. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. Maybe I don't have as close of a connection to the people that I just recently got my job with if I'm not watching Dragon Ball Superhero, which is like wild to think. He has like little influences here and there, and I cannot deny that like impact. So rest in peace, Akira Toriyama. But where did we leave off?
You're talking about Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I was talking about Blade Runner. Oh my God.
Love Blade Runner.
I have to talk about Blade Runner. You watched Blade Runner for the first time this past year.
I did.
Right? With me. Did you like it?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm a freak for it like some people are.
Yeah.
But I had a really good time watching it.
Our producer in the back here is having like an attack.
I think it was one of those things where like people have hyped it up for so long that I think it was like overhyped for me. I think that's where that got me.
Yeah.
Like I still enjoyed it. Do not get me wrong. Like,
yeah.
Blade Runner is fucking awesome. I will watch it again.
Yeah.
Right?
Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling.
Didn't blow.
Oh, so the newer version has Ryan Gosling. So that's Blade Runner 2049.
I do want to check that one out.
I love Blade Runner 2049, and our timing of talking about it is very fascinating because Denis Villeneuve's new movie is in theaters right now, which is Dune 2.
I still need to see Dune 1.
Oh man,
and I
need to watch both of them too.
You haven't seen either of them?
I haven't seen either.
Dude, I was literally driving to work this morning, and I heard they had a whole segment about Dune. They were saying, they were reviewing it as like what does it do well in terms of storytelling and stuff, and it was comparison from 1 to 2. It was interesting, but
I have a friend.
It made it sound. I kind of got a little interested about watching it.
I have a friend who loves the Dune movies.
We do too.
And I really want to see it. Oh, it looks like the producer is not into it. I will be talking to you after this episode about it.
All right.
Very excited.
Special episode for the Patreon.
The conversation about Dune.
Dune conversation. $5 tiers are up.
But Blade Runner. So Blade Runner is based on a classic, if I'm not mistaken, Philip K. Dick book titled Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Have you heard of that book?
No. Sounds very along the lines of what we're going to talk about with Pluto, though.
Correct.
Already seen it.
So, Blade Runner is essentially about it's Harrison Ford. We'll just call him Harrison Ford. And he's something called a Blade Runner, which essentially their job is to find robots or androids that have gone rogue. They've gone rogue.
Okay.
And essentially like take them out. And there are tests that he can do that will like determine if you're a robot or not. There's a psychopath. So the big thing about Blade Runner, there's a through line of Blade Runner to things like psychopaths.
Yeah. A lot of things are inspired by it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So many things are inspired by it. And it is very clear that Pluto is one of them.
Yeah.
Very clear.
But Pluto's Astro Boy.
Pluto is also inspired by Astro Boy, but to add the complex layers that it does, I think it needed Blade Runner.
Oh, so you mean it's like has a Blade Runner.
Because the original was just like, right, Pluto beats up goons and then Astro Boy fights Pluto.
Don't do that.
Yeah, and then it's done. The whole like murder mystery stuff and the like what is going on with everything else, like with like in terms of the androids, because the original Astro Boy I don't think dealt with the robotic feeling, the iRobot aspect of it. And part of it is the Blade Runner thing.
No, things that happen to Astro Boy are things that I never pictured that they would actually have in the show.
Correct.
Original show. That's a no, don't do that.
Right.
Correct. And so like Guessage, very clear through line of Harrison Ford to Guessage, as like the hard-boiled like detective.
Yeah.
And it's perfect because, right, Jenny, we've been watching noirs. There's a through line of noir to Blade Runner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just throw sci-fi in there. Chuck sci-fi in there.
I actually wrote this as one of my notes to ask you. Is Pluto a film noir? A neo-noir or something?
Oh, it's definitely a neo-noir.
Yeah.
Definitely a neo-noir.
So
you know,
like,
based on who you ask is an actual noir. A lot of people associate it with the time period, right?
True.
So, like, it can't be a true noir.
Right.
For a lot of people.
No, it's just 30-20s.
But it's certainly neo. I don't think anybody can debate that. So it's like really fascinating because like the title, I think the original title of Do Androids Dream of an Electric Sheep was Electric Shepherd. And the people who published that book or that ended up publishing that book was like, that's stupid. That's a stupid title. Change it, Philip K. Dick. And so he changed it to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. And it's a weird, convoluted title because people don't dream of sheep when they're going to sleep. They count sheep, you know, to like fall asleep.
Yeah.
But it was like important that they like add the dreaming aspect because like it doesn't mean like a literal dream, like when you're sleeping, but rather when people dream, they have wishes and they have wants. And so like to have the robot characters, the primary one that we see dreaming in the anime is North Number 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's a perfect through line to the final realization of his character. And that's North Number 2 has a legitimate want. And North Number 2's want is to never fight again. And he sees that opportunity by learning the piano. Mm-hmm. And so Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is a very clear through line to the character of North Number 2 and him being an android that quote unquote dreams of electric sheep because he has this want, you know, it's really fascinating.
That's funny because I translated that in my head differently. The title of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. Mm-hmm. When you said shepherd, it completely like broke my circuits. But
yeah.
So I studied AI. Like that was part of my one of my degrees, and like
the movie.
Huh?
Whoa.
I know you watched AI for the first time recently.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, you did. Continue.
But one of the concepts is that it translates, literally directly translates whatever it's data.
Yeah.
So there is no roundabout way that it might interpret XYZ. Everything is very literal. Mm-hmm. So if you think about cartoons, this is where some of the data comes from. Cartoons, they depict humans going to sleep and they have little dream bubbles.
Yeah.
And there's like sheep, you know, bouncing in it or whatever.
Yeah, jumping
so
over
I think
fence.
an AI would absolutely think, oh, humans dream of sheep when they go to bed.
Yeah.
There's other little translations too of like the Christmas jingle thing. It's dance thoughts of sugar plum fairies dance in their heads. Mm-hmm. They literally think, oh yeah, they actually start dancing in their heads, and that's sleep. Mm-hmm. Around the holidays, that is the sugar running through the body.
Interesting.
Of the meal they consumed last night. Mm-hmm. Yeah, things like that. So I feel like that almost sounds like the way an android, if you would ask them what is a dream, they would say, or like, you know, early AI. They're flawed, right? Yeah. That's the flaw. They don't understand figurative speech and nuances like that. So when they hear when you ask an android, what do you think a dream is? They're like, do you mean where you have a goal? No. When you go to sleep and you dream.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, it's gonna be you've got, you know, sheep. Like that's their interpretation. That's the only way they can actually describe a dream if they've never had one.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you bring that up because that's like a recurring theme of the show, right?
Yes.
A lot of the characters are like, I've never felt they encourage robots in the show to behave as much as they can like humans.
Yeah.
Great note. Because just even food.
Yeah.
And consumption.
Yeah.
Such a messed up scene. The scene with or like it emotionally affected me was the scene with Dr. Tenma and Adam.
Oh.
And Adam is eating.
Yeah.
And he's like, how do you feel about that food? It's like, it's tasty. And
it.
Adam has clarified in an early episode, he doesn't really taste it, but, you know, the more that he engages with it, the more that he hopes to understand it.
Yeah.
To understand what it means to like food.
AI.
Yeah.
There's that scene, the famous, like, the robot kid starts eating spinach.
Mhm.
And then his face fucking melts.
Oh, God.
And I was so traumatized by that scene that every time robots ate or drink anything, I'm just kind of like,
Oh, God, are they going to do it?
please don't have your face start melting.
And like, yeah, that scene is just so interesting to me because Dr. Tenma's like, yeah, do you like that? Like, how does it taste? You know, what is it that you like about it?
Do you like that?
And Adam would just be like, yeah, I like it. You know, like it tastes good. It tastes yummy. And then, and because he was using Adam as kind of this like,
he called him an utter failure.
it was because right?
It wasn't his son.
It wasn't his son ultimately, and he was like, my son hates
that. Yeah, he's like, my son hates that meal.
And I was like, that's so messed up. Like, I felt so, but he doesn't know what's going on.
Right.
Astro Boy doesn't know what's going on. He's just like
Adam's
eating it.
reaction was perfect.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything. He just goes processing.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
Recalculating.
That's crazy.
Drive.
And
Other
Tenma
way.
can't help but like feel like I have failed.
Yes.
Because it's not creating, you know, this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a fascinating conversation. I
actually wrote in my notes about food consumption in the show.
I love that every anime we talk about, we end up talking about food because food always means something different for every anime that we do.
Very important.
Food is very important. I also love
we support food on this podcast.
Yeah.
We're food positive.
Pro food.
Anime podcast versus food podcast is second.
Did you guys notice Geshik stopped pretending when it came after, like, as the story progressed?
No.
So early on, his wife is bringing him a coffee.
Yeah.
That he doesn't drink, and we just kind of go. We don't realize at this point that he's a
Yeah,
robot.
that he's a robot, right?
Yeah.
You don't learn until that like scene where he gets hit over the head with the metal bat, and I'm like,
Right.
is he a robot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he puts on the show. He orders something every time he goes out, meets with somebody to make them more comfortable. He orders something.
Mhm.
It stops.
Yeah.
There's a point where he just goes, no thanks. Or you'll see rejections of like, none for me, you know.
I didn't pick up on that.
It becomes like he's now more like, I'm not even going to pretend to you that I'm a human. He gets even says it out front now, you know, like, I'm not a human. And it's like, before he kept, you know, going like...
That's so interesting.
He had this whole, like, perfect human persona thing going on.
He did.
Right? With his wife and everything. They would take vacations.
You question whether the wife was human or not. Like,
Right.
Does she know her husband is a robot?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I had those moments,
scandal,
like...
Yeah.
Then finally, when you find out she's a robot, you're like, okay, cool. Like, that makes more sense. But then...
Yeah.
But also this situation.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because as he discovers more about the problems with the case, his ability to like not roll into the system just goes out the window.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that strong theme, and this is something I think there's a lot of economic commentary too in Pluto.
Oh, brother. Let me
brother.
tell you, actually my favorite part of this entire thing is learning that a teddy bear named Mr. Roosevelt is the villain all along. And that not the USA. Thracia.
United
is
States
the villain of the whole thing, and that their conflict in the Middle East is the reason that all of this happened.
Yep.
I won't go too much into that. But
crazy.
let me know that I gotta let it be known that was my favorite fucking thing.
Yeah.
I was like watching that and I was like, I had a seething. I started to feel that hatred.
So you know how like Astro Boy is a postmodern story.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
It's post World War II. This is the next postmodern. Like it is post the
desert conflict.
the conflict.
Yeah, desert conflict. Yeah.
But the reason I bring up economics is like a strong theme is one, you see a lot of status stuff related to like where they're like who they're saving and then like why anyone's mad, like what their priorities are. But like with when it came to the robots, there was like they don't care about that stuff. That's almost a point.
Well, they fought the war, right?
Yeah.
Right. They don't want anything to deal with that anymore.
Nothing. It has nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
They're created just because, for whatever purpose.
Right.
But yeah, like there's just so many like conversations in here, and I do like seeing the tiredness is a really big thing. So it's one of the first things we hear. A robot that gets tired, like, that's kind of weird, but you're exhibiting signs of being tired. Well, when you get tired, certain functions become less capable. Like when you drink, for example, your reaction slows down. Same with exhaustion. Your reactions slow down. So he stops trying to be human, which actually took a lot of effort out of him previously.
Yeah.
Because now he's putting all of what's left of his energy into trying to figure out what is going on.
Yeah, what is even going on?
And so everything is so realistic. And I'm like, man, that's probably why Paul was like, I love him so much, because like I feel that that exhaustion where you can't even be polite anymore. You can't even like put on a face.
No.
You can't even try and please your wife and say, hey, we're gonna go on vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's so good. And yeah, Gesich it is a fascinating decision to switch the main character from the very original arc, which is an Astro Boy story, to Gesich. It's perfect. Yeah. It is a perfect choice because he is trying to solve this mystery. He is as important a character as every other, of the great robots, the 7 great robots. And he has a connection with all of them. Very classic noir situation. Because he fought in the war too, right?
He did.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
He did that whole break-in scene, and he saw the father who was just like, my child.
That's
this
right.
is my child that you guys bomb.
Yeah,
he's not a terrorist.
You don't feel anything, do you, as you're watching me cry?
Oh my god, yeah! What a scene! What a scene! And that's such a noir thing. I think we just watched Kiss Me Deadly, and he fought in the war, didn't he? Didn't Hammer fought in the war? Or am I thinking of a different noir protagonist?
He did. That man does not look like he'd ever go to war.
Just filled with such rage. That is like a common thing. I think there have been a number of like noir characters who have like fought in the war, and they come back, and then it's like, I have to sit with this, and it affects me, and it's going to affect the rest of the story. Even if we don't realize.
Yeah, they fought in the war.
Okay.
There's no talks of like the trauma that they experienced. I don't remember it.
Well, now I got to know, because we all agreed on Epsilon.
Yeah.
Who's our second favorite? Gesich? Yeah. Any reason why Gesich?
I just find him as a character just very fascinating. For all the reasons that we just kind of talked about, right?
Yeah.
Like how you were saying, like, Paul, there's that like relatable factor of just like, I know this feeling of just like being exhausted and just like we dropped the persona.
But you also care so much, so you want to try.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I see Gesich and I'm just like that feeling of like, you are as human as anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, I feel a real connection with that character in a lot of ways. The other characters are like really cool. Like they have really dope moments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I like Brando's energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hercules, like I also like, you know, the action scenes with him and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, there are aspects to like these characters that I like, but just I guess it just leaves like such a strong impression.
Mhm.
And I'm like, this is like a clear second, and everybody else is just like, this is my flavor fun pick.
Yeah. All right. So where did we leave off? We were talking. You wanted to talk about art in Pluto.
Yeah, there's a lot of references. One of the ones that I immediately started like pointing at TV, going, was towards the end, and now I'm wondering how much did I miss up to this point. But it was a Macbeth reference.
Is it the hand washing?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it.
Yes.
I knew it.
It's a reference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about it.
In Macbeth, when there's somebody who commits murder, they have this whole monologue about washing their hands afterwards, and they're like, the blood won't come off.
Yeah.
It won't go away. It's kind of like, it's almost Edgar Allan Poe-ish, where he's like the heart, you know, the telltale heart, where you just like, it's gonna stay with you. It's a stain. It's a picture of Dorian Gray, or portrait of Dorian Gray, where he sees his flaws everywhere, and now it's like somebody's gonna find out. Like somebody's gonna know.
Right.
But that's not the question here. It was more of like the guilt.
Yes.
And it's like, and also we're talking about robots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And robots
They
gonna
feel-
for doing their job.
He's feeling guilt.
Interesting,
feeling it.
So
right?
that obsessive.
Fascinating.
So yeah, if you ever see like a character who's like obsessed with cleaning, it often goes back to the Macbeth.
Macbeth. Yeah. And it was a straight, just like, it won't come off. Like he's not even talking to.
No, he's
Hercules
not paying
behind him.
any mind.
No.
He's in his
No.
own little world, just
It
won't come off.
One of my favorite villains in all of like cinema is Kate Blanchett in Hannah. Your first introductions to her character, she has perfect teeth, and she is like obsessively cleaning them, and then like she's obsessively washing her hands, and then everything has to be clean, and then like I'm like, this is the villain. She has a lot of blood. She has a lot of blood on her hands.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know.
Just from that
And it
scene.
escalates like later, where she like obsessively cleans more to the point where her like teeth are bleeding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit, yeah. So like, it's a classic trope. Can't wait for you to keep your eye out on that.
Yeah.
Also a lot of references to Van Gogh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How so?
The Field of Flowers.
There's the Field of Flowers. Yeah. Starry Night.
Starry Night. Yep.
Yeah, you're right.
I see that.
I didn't even think about that.
And that's a whole thing of questioning like your purpose. Van Gogh's whole life, his whole documentary, I guess, about himself, is that he's just like, what should I be doing? Like he tries to do normal things in society, but he just doesn't feel like he fits. And he's even questioning with people who are really close to him, who say, your place is with me, and like we're gonna partner on this thing, and we're together. His brother and stuff like that too, who he wrote letters to all the time. He still always felt this like disconnect, you know. And you see it in his work too, and the way he views the world. And that's how I feel like that's AI. AI is told, you belong in this world. Now do things with me. You're supposed to work with me. And AI is just like, I just did this thing. How's that?
Yeah.
You're like, no, regenerate.
It doesn't like work.
What are you doing? That sounds so silly. And they're
Right.
like, I did my best.
Yeah.
Every time, all it does is its best.
I actually want to segue that like statement into are both of you familiar with the concept of nature versus nurture?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not. For the uninitiated.
For the uninitiated. So it is a classic very sci-fi like conversation about or really about anything that humans create. Whether it be, you know, children or like monsters or robots and stuff like that. It is a heavy conversation in my favorite book of all time, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, because one could like if you analyze. Do you know the story of Frankenstein,
Yes.
like the general,
Yes.
right? Do you think Frankenstein kills people if Dr. Frankenstein or Frankenstein's monster kills people if Dr. Frankenstein actually like took care of the monster? Is it Frankenstein's monster's nature to kill things, or is it a byproduct of Dr. Frankenstein not caring about the monster? that's the nature versus nurture aspect of it. And that is riddled in Pluto. Is riddled in Pluto, right?
Yeah.
We see a lot of characters. We see a lot of fathers in this anime. There are a lot of fathers, and most of the world's great robots had very caring fathers. But what's interesting about each of the father characters, they're also complex, right? Dr. Tenma did care about Astro Boy, but he was a really complex, and a lot of it was because of the whole "you're not my actual son" thing.
Oh my God! When that moment that you realize that that's who, that it's Astro Boy's father.
Yeah.
Father, I will say that.
Yeah.
It is when Uran.
Yeah, Uran
says
Astro Boy's sister.
It just feels like somebody has grieved twice.
Yeah.
I was oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
You created this thing with the intention to, keep your son alive.
And you call it an utter failure. You renounce it. You reject it. You are absent.
Yeah.
But when it goes, you grieve it like your first child.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was like, okay, yeah, you can't you never did let go of those things. And so cool.
And it makes them so interesting.
So complex.
Yeah.
So many layers. Fantastic layering of a character who could have been two-dimensional of, man, I am smarter than all of you.
It's very easy to screw up that guy.
They said this guy's a genius. Oh, geniuses say this guy's a genius.
He comes across that way to start.
But he also has a lot of flaws.
Yeah, he has a lot of flaws. But he cares too.
Yes.
He really did care throughout to the end. But you had a hard time telling. And I think a lot of the great robots specifically, I think father figures cared. I think of Gesich. Gesich's robot, Dr. Haas. Is it Dr.
Hoffman.
Haas? Hoffman. Dr. Hoffman, when things were happening, and then, arguably our primary villain, the president of Thracia, he was like, what did you do?
Yeah.
What did you do to Gesich? And I'm like, oh my God, what did he do? And you find out what he did.
And he was always concerned for Gesich the entire time.
The entire time.
I had nightmares, so I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they had that conversation of just is someone messing with my memories? And he took that to heart and took it back and was trying to figure out answers to this.
He never invalidated anything.
Never.
Correct.
He said the probability of that's very low.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible.
Right.
Yeah.
That's and he always was like, yeah, I'm taking what you're saying into consideration.
Taking it into consideration. I'm gonna look into it.
Such a sweet relationship. Fatherly son relationship.
A healthy father-son relationship. And so that's the nurture, right? The I think a lot of the conversation is that it is not in the nature of robots to be this evil thing that a lot of characters feel. It is a byproduct of how they're nurtured.
Yes.
And we see that juxtaposed with Pluto.
Right.
Which is so sad. Because
tragic.
Yeah, Pluto, right? Pluto's original body, Sahad. Sahad only it's really fascinating to see because I relate with this idea so much. Living the whole Thracia thing, that country had so many problems, but I think people cared about the country. I feel the same way about our country. I'm it has problems and I want to confront those problems because I actually do love this country.
Right.
But because of the results that were happening in the Middle East and with Sahad, right? Sahad's plan was I want to be able to grow flowers in this desert, this beautiful thing that will help the country. But then, what happens? War. Abula losing everything as a foil to Dr. Tenma.
Right.
Right. Dr. Tenma losing his family. Abula losing his family. But how do each react
to very different roads that are taken?
Yep. Yeah. Two very different roads that are taken, and Abula ultimately uses his fatherly kind of figure to emotionally manipulate Sahad into becoming Pluto. It breaks my heart when I watch that scene, and Abula is like, I love you. Because what is happening here is
And
not...
his face.
At his
was
face.
Not.
He said, I love you to manipulate you.
Yes.
Yeah, not to be like, I
Mhm.
do love you. Like, I'm like,
No. It's blinded by hatred.
Mm-hmm.
Hatred for what Thracia has done, the loss of his family,
Mhm.
but he's also like such a tragic figure because he's a byproduct of the war in the Middle East. It's like how I feel about it. I'm like, no, dude. Like, there's so many more
I wanted to believe in him. I wanted to believe that he was a good guy.
Well,
especially.
Abula made Bora.
Yeah.
Bora was originally intended to be an agricultural
Yes.
robot, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Made by him. He had like good intentions to start, and obviously he made Sahad, and Sahad was that way. Like,
Sweetheart.
yeah,
Absolute sweetheart.
and I think there is a world where Abula just like he made one of the great robots in Sahad, and Sahad changed the country in this like healthy way, just like the other 7 great robots.
Mm-hmm.
The tragedy is like everyone is a byproduct of the environment that they're in, and the war to Persia, and then also like the ruler of Persia, to be fair, Darius also had like a hatred.
Yeah.
That was like problematic. It's the world leaders, right?
Yeah.
Darius.
Yeah.
Yeah. Darius.
But I honestly felt like he was very justified in his hatred. And
Yeah.
he also didn't really do anything terrible.
Mhm.
He was the victim of a lot of it. But
Yeah,
he got made the face of terror
Yes.
and horror.
Of course.
Right.
He didn't do anything. Like, he just was like, you guys fucked up my country.
Yeah.
Right,
Like,
right.
why wouldn't I be mad at you? But I haven't done anything.
Yeah.
Why are you guys pinning everything on me? You just look at me immediately and go, it was you.
Yeah.
I've been here this whole time.
Yeah.
I'm slowly getting weak. He looks atrophied.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Once you see the flashback and then him now, oh my God.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Mans has gone through it.
Yeah.
And such an interesting backdrop to the whole thing. Once again, not in the original story.
Mm-hmm.
None of this political context or like, all of that stuff is in the original.
It's unavoidable though with the story like Astro Boy or the themes of Astro Boy.
Yeah.
And it's rising from the ashes, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
The science and progression that naturally comes from war.
Yeah.
You have some of the greatest scientific inventions from World War II. And it's like a thing that people are like embarrassed and sad to say,
Yeah.
but they're like, but we also got all of this, and we had this huge technological advancement, and then people started to distrust it, and that's what whole story is about.
Have both of you seen The Wind Rises?
Mm.
The Wind Rises. Yes. Yes.
You seen The Wind
Yes.
Rises?
Yes.
Do you know The Wind Rises? So The Wind Rises is one of my favorite Hayao Miyazaki movies. And I saw like similar themes.
Mhm.
The main character. So The Wind Rises is about a famous, is it aeronautical engineer? He designed airplanes, and he loved airplanes in Japan. It's based on a real person. But the problem is the time he was born. He was born during World War II. So unfortunately, the planes that he was like designing had to be used for war.
Mhm.
And that's what these characters feel like. They feel like, right? Any like great thing, they do great things. These robots do amazing things. Like post-war, they were doing like amazing things. But unfortunately, they were designed for war.
Built for war.
Oh man,
and was like Hercules? Isn't he the one that always says like I am made to fight or something like
Yes.
that? Like, I was built to fight.
but
I was built to fight.
he also showed his like soft side.
Yeah.
almost the whole time.
Yeah.
I love Hercules.
I love that
He's
conversation.
Mhm.
That actually, yeah, when we're talking about our second favorites,
Mhm.
Brando was mine.
Brando was
Brando.
yours? Interesting.
Yeah.
Brando's dope.
Why?
Because I loved his.
Shout out to Brando.
Thinking
Our producer.
Yeah, our
Brando.
producer. Uh-huh.
I loved his story, like his whole thing of like what he cared about was being humble.
Yeah.
Not he's like, you've made so much money. What are you doing with it?
Mhm.
Well, this.
Yeah.
And he's taking care of kids, and it's like very similar to Epsilon, but
Very similar to Epsilon.
I liked what Brando did more than Epsilon in some ways. I just loved Epsilon's ending.
Yeah.
Brando
It's a great ending.
Brando, I was like, you're being selfish.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I honestly was angry at Brando for his decisions.
Mhm.
But that's why he's my second. Otherwise I've been like, he's my number one.
Yeah.
But his humbleness, the modesty of the way they lived, Epsilon was grand.
Epsilon is still grand,
Yeah.
despite it all. Yeah.
But Brando was like somebody who really truly doesn't even feel sad about like, oh yeah, I have to live in this like little hop of a place, very commonplace apartment, with my family.
Mhm.
It seemed like he had a wife in the story, but it was honest. Like it was like that's the first thing he saw when he was like, and it's as a robot too. He's just like, first thing he thinks of like, oh, that's it. I gotta say bye.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the first thing comes to mind, like, oh, my wife. And I was like, he really did love her. And
He did. Yeah.
that is love. That is absolutely
He did. And that's once again, another like very common theme in the show.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first things that happened to Gesich, our main character, is having to deal with a robot who dies on duty.
Yeah.
And going to the wife and being like, I can erase your memories of him if you want. She's like, don't.
Early on.
That is episode 1.
Yeah.
That is episode 1.
Yep.
And we see that consistently throughout the show up until Gesich's demise. And then what do they tell Helena, his wife?
Mm-hmm.
We can remove your husband's memories. And she is just sobbing. And she's trying to learn what it means to like grieve.
Yeah.
Because like robots don't know how to grieve. And she's like, if there's one thing I know, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like don't delete the memories of my husband. And I'm like, oh, oh God. Oh no.
I mean, honestly, if someone were to come up to you and say, hey, I can delete memories
Yeah.
from you, like what would you like me to delete?
Yeah.
That's
It's very, have you seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
That was also on the NPR segment I was reviewing Dune.
Yeah.
They also said, hey, so we're going to go back 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We're talking about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
I have not seen it. But
Have you?
No.
Are we going to have to schedule a... Our producer has said... For background music, we need to watch this.
Yeah, I heard it.
Paul's seen it, and he's like, I never want to see it again.
I understand.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's really sad.
Paul's a sad boy.
It's really sad. It's gut wrenching.
Yeah, apparently.
So, like, imagine that theme of like, I don't want to forget this person, but like, that's the whole movie.
Okay.
Because so this is the plot line of the movie is like Kate Winslet, Jim Carrey. They were in a relationship for a long time, but they broke up, and then Jim Carrey learns that Kate Winslet had deleted her memories of him.
Oh.
And so then he's like, well, she can have that, then I'll do that too, because it like is awful for me. And so, he goes to get that process done. It's essentially an overnight process. While you're sleeping, they slowly delete your memories of this other person. And then like, he's going through like the dream sequences, and he's starting to lose those memories of her. And like throughout it, he starts to realize, I don't want to lose these memories of her.
Uh-oh.
Oh yeah. That sounds pretty Rob Core.
So whenever y'all are ready.
Always ready.
I actually know one reason why Paul would be really deep about that is his grandmother passed away from Alzheimer's. And she was living with his parents on the last years of her life.
Yeah.
So they were regularly seeing her. I actually met her right before she passed away.
Yeah.
And like they would jokingly tell stories about like, the way she would do things.
Yeah.
And, like, as the Alzheimer's sitting in, but they were like, she was so spunky.
Yeah.
And when I met her, like I'm a new face, right? There's
Yeah.
no reason that she would have any reason to connect with me or whatever, but she just went, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And she just spoke so highly of him. And she's like,
Yeah.
you see these paintings in the bedroom? He made these. Like, she's like taught to like talk him up or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, she's already figured out like, oh yeah, this girl. I wasn't even dating Paul at the time. I was just the friend that he was bringing, around. And I was just saying, oh, hi, nice to meet you,
Yeah.
But he is so scared of memory loss. Like it's and
Yeah,
that's
I
one
am too.
reason. And that's one reason like zombieism is such a big thing, because memory loss is the number one thing that sucks your soul away.
Yeah.
If you don't remember what happened to you in
You're
your
not
life,
the same person.
you are not a human.
Yeah, you're not a
You're
human.
not a human, straight up.
Yeah.
You are, and disease that has that whole thing with literature is you are no longer human, and you're also only identified by that friend that died from cancer. You are that
Yeah.
friend that died from Alzheimer's. You know,
Yeah.
you are
Right.
not. Oh yeah, that was a buddy of mine who I used to go like hang out and skateboard all the time with,
Yeah.
or listen to music or watch anime with, and talk about, you know, whatever it is. Oh yeah, it's that friend of mine that died, you know, from XYZ disease, and that becomes your identity.
Yeah.
And that's the all-encompassing thing with memory loss too.
Mhm.
So when you have a choice,
Mhm.
and it's because it gets rid of the pain now, it's like, actually, this is kind of what makes me human. And I
Yeah.
think the robots say
Choosing
too,
to.
Yeah.
they're like, we have a curse of being able to remember everything.
Yeah. Correct.
But also they kind of realize, actually, this is part of what makes us more human. When Geshik pulls a memory of somebody that he knows, like he's like, this isn't the first time I've met you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then he says specific things. This person feels so warm, I'm sure. Just like, you remember that? You know, he
Yeah.
doesn't do that reaction. He just goes,
Sure.
yeah, you know me.
Mhm.
That's like such a human connection.
Yeah.
You know, when you see somebody you haven't seen forever and you pull a memory that they're like, I can't believe you remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or you even remember their name.
Oh, yeah.
They get so excited. You know?
Which is why it's like messed up that the president of Thracia is deleting his memories,
yes,
right?
against his
Against his will, because it is
Right.
more of that thing of like thrusting upon these, you're not human.
yes,
Mhm.
I can do this to you,
I could do this to you.
and the whole
And they're not
concept-
important to you. The memories of your son, which by the way, that's the memories of Gesich. That's what's revealed, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Gesich had not a son, I guess a daughter, Robita.
I don't even know. No,
Had a child.
Child. They had a child.
There's a male.
Is it?
I
Yeah, because they said
believe
he's
so.
he's walking.
He's walking.
Yeah, it was a
Okay,
male.
but it is a child. It
Doesn't matter with a
it-
robot though. You notice that we've talked about gender a lot. With
It's a very
robots,
interesting
but does it
conversation,
matter?
and that's why Epsilon is so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted
That's part of the reason that Epsilon is so fascinating.
I wanted to
to
bring
me.
that up earlier because I was like, wait, gender. Why do we care?
Right.
Yeah, why do we care? You're absolutely correct.
They get roles too, but it's like that doesn't even mean that robot's a female.
But it's them
Right.
trying
Just
to
gave
fit
it a
in.
feminine voice.
It's them trying to fit in with everything else.
Yeah,
Right. And so yeah, Gesich had a child,
except for Epsilon.
and then
Except for Epsilon.
and ultimately the memories weren't completely deleted. It's kind of the thought that like, if we delete stuff from memory cards, is it really delete?
No.
There's still data there.
Never dies.
Mhm.
Data never dies.
Data always is. Snapchat, for all you viewers, Snapchat never deletes the photos, videos, or anything.
Yeah.
Correct.
They're all going to a database.
Yeah.
When they say delete, that is just a delete. That means it goes to the trash bin. You know the trash bin, you can pull anything you want from it.
Yes.
Yes, it has an expiration at some point, but that expiration also goes to another database that is
Yeah.
less accessible because everything, like it's like matter. Matter
Yeah.
never goes away.
Mhm.
And the only way you can actually say data is gone is if you actually destroy it.
Yeah.
Where you have to, there's methods where we do this with classified information all the time, where you have to say in writing, XYZ material was physically destroyed.
Yeah.
And destroyed has to be burned
Mm-hmm.
or disintegrated
Yeah.
with chemicals.
Yep.
You cannot say like, yeah, I deleted it. I hit reset. I hit delete. I hit everything or whatever.
Right.
Mhm.
No, all that is absolutely still pullable.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what happened with Gesich, who
Yes.
is still like available. Those memories of his child were never gone. And then that like reveal at the end that he had a child, and then Gesich learning hatred. And it is fascinating, right? Because it's so wild. This anime is so wild because it does the Gesich is the main character. And we see that throughout episode 1. And then we meet Astro Boy. We meet Adam
Atom.
at the end of episode 1. And that is the main character we know of the original story. And, for anybody that knows Astro Boy, it's like, oh, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
for the end of episode 1 to end on the reveal of Astro Boy is in this story. And then we go through 6 episodes where they're both like involved. Gesich is still the main character though.
We're kind of going back and forth between them.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a back and forth, right? Both. As each of the great robots die, the way that like Gesich and Astro Boy are affected by the information is very important until like Gesich's demise, and then we do like a kind of handoff to Astro Boy, who is now the main character of the finale, and Astro Boy getting the memories of all the other robots of everybody, and learning what hatred is. Fascinating. Yeah. Also, like, kind of scary. Like, and the
yeah, if you got information that you never asked for.
Yeah, exactly. You never asked for it, and
you're like, oh god,
I don't know.
And in terms of
his face, I was like, I understand.
Yeah. That boy going through it.
Yeah.
And so before Astro Boy and before Pluto, there had been only one other robot who had killed before.
Yes.
And that was Brow, 1598.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brow, 1589. Who, by the way, was also a character in the original series.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Cool.
So the original character that Brow was based on was Blue Knight. His name was Blue Knight, which I don't know if that means, I don't know, does Brow mean blue?
No.
No?
Means
Is Brow
brown.
a German name?
Means brown, I think.
It means brown?
Yeah.
Interesting. Blue Knight was a person in the original Astro Boy series, and he's heavily involved in the Pluto story as well, who wanted equality for robots. But he despised humans.
Interesting.
So it is a cool take on the character.
Yeah.
It is a very cool like transition to turn him into the only other robot that actually killed in history was Brow.
Yeah.
Or the Blue Knight. He has Lance in his body. So it's like a reference to like the whole knight thing.
Right.
Yeah. Such a cool like
fascinating.
It's so good, dude. You could do like a Wikipedia like hole that you could go down. Let me see the original characters. How do we get from point A to point B?
Right.
And that's where I was like, wow, this show is a little bit of a marvel because they added so much to these characters. Like I said, you saw the original design of North number 2.
Yes.
We don't get any of that until his final moments because he is completely cloaked throughout like most of it. But it is very true to his original design.
Absolutely.
And like, it looks goofy in the original one, but like he was a machine made for war. So like, you know, he's like, I have to keep all these hidden.
Yeah. I mean, I love that he even says that too every time he's just the blind guy, right? Once the blind guy gets to see it, he's like, just go ahead and open up all your stuff. He's like, well, you literally wouldn't be able to see it if I did do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like with North's thing, it's like I'm hiding the intent of why I was made, but not even hiding it for that. He's like, it makes people more comfortable around me.
Yeah,
that's why the robots. I mean, we learned this immediately in the first episode when he's a robot. Like
he was probably my second favorite, by the way.
Gesich. Oh yeah, okay.
North number 2.
Yeah. Gesich was trying to act more human.
Yes.
It's like it makes people more comfortable around me, but also you got a strong like. You're definitely not human though.
Right.
Like when he starts like analyzing things, it's like, yes, obviously he was walking in at 13 centimeters and then walking 17. I was like, very specific. Yeah, it's probably a robot.
Yeah, absolutely robot energy.
Yeah, not gonna make a human comfortable. No, sorry. North number 2 was trying to do the same thing, but also with a blind guy. But he's monstrously tall.
He's monstrously tall, yeah.
Has these big old bug eyes.
Yeah, and there's something about that, right? Like you can't read a human emotion from him.
No.
Right.
Like he yeah.
Oh, but oh my god. The thing that I loved about that made me like lose my mind was the music. So Bochi. Okay.
Yeah, we all love Bochi here.
No.
I love Bochi.
No.
Same.
I remember like I watched it again after Paul played a song randomly.
Yeah.
That he was just like, oh, this is Mochi. It's a pretty good song. Let's play it casually, right? No context. Can't understand language. I don't know what I'm listening to, but I also listened to it and I was like, I'm getting chills. Like, this song's really good.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I just chose this randomly, but it's like a really good scene actually when they're playing, and it's the first time that she plays in front of a crowd, and I was like,
oh, yeah.
He's like, you didn't get to that part? And I was like, no, I stopped before that. I was done. And he's like, oh yeah, that's the scene. And I was like, okay, I'm willing to watch. So the emotion came through for the song, and that is kind of a rare phenomenon if you have no emotional like connection to the song. Like if it's something you listen to in middle school, high school, has lyrics that relate to you,
right?
Or you'll get emotional connections. But this one I had nothing. Right?
Sure.
And I was like, that's an emotionally good song. As soon as I heard episodes 2 music, I first heard it, and I don't know the compositions. I might actually have to look it up, who inspired or who wrote the piece, because as soon as I heard it, I started thinking, I gotta look up what artist wrote this or who's the composer. Because I was like, this sounds so classic or whatever. And it was like, he said, oh, this is my original piece. And I was like, what the fuck is before the show? Like, I thought this was I really genuinely thought this had to be a composer, a classical artist, because it was so deep. It had like Chopin notes and Vivaldi.
Shouts to Chopin. Shouts to Vivaldi.
And I was like,
Rite of Spring. All my homies love Rite of Spring.
It was so emotional. I was like, I could not believe that it was for the show. I was like,
amazing.
Holy shit. Like, who wrote this? And then when the whole story gets built around the song and then how it gets built, I was like, I understand. Like, you get stuck on this like creative process. I was like, oh my God, I'm losing my mind. And then and then to get AI to be creative. And also understand the creative process. And he said, I think this is what you're actually trying to do. And I was like, oh my God, he would do it mathematically. He would just go, and then that's the problem though, right? We saw that in Your Lie in April. He was a robot.
Yes.
Right? They're like, he just kind of plays it perfectly to the score, but the score is also flawed, right? The score should be flawed.
Score should be flawed.
It should be.
Because we're flawed.
Yeah.
We're flawed creations.
We are not mathematical. We're not computers. And so to teach that to a robot too, how to not be mathematical, but through music, which is mathematical in all of its philosophies. I was like, man, this is such a complex, deep, and then art means so much, this whole thing. The fact that a robot can make art, the fact that a robot can dream. I was, this is where I fell in fucking love with Pluto. Yeah.
Episode 1. Really good episode.
And 2.
Yeah. and two. Bangers. I do have, I guess, one problem.
Oh.
We lost the light.
Oh, yeah. I was like, your light went out.
Oh, snap. Out of battery?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pause?
That'll be okay.
Nah, I don't think we can do that. It's dead.
Oh,
nah.
You don't have a charger for it?
It won't charge fast enough.
It's
an overnight charge.
All
good.
It'll be okay.
Still looks fine.
What was I gonna say? I do have a problem, I suppose.
Good, we got to this part finally.
Yeah. I do have a problem, I suppose, with...
It's cool. We had 2 hours of positive. Let's get to the
We do, right.
That's more than we usually
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, this is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, right?
Good job, bro.
We
I told you. I'm starting this off strong.
I'm certainly in a place where it's like I don't want to dissuade anyone from the show.
Absolutely.
I think everyone should watch this show.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, you should just stop watching this podcast and go watch the show at this point, because I will talk about the ending. The ending is, I guess, the part that...
Spoilers, but we already had multiple.
Yeah, we've already had multiple
You know what
spoilers.
you're getting into.
Yeah, you know what you're getting into at this point.
Yeah.
I have a problem with Pluto, who has barely known both characters, Epsilon and Astro Boy, being able to turn it off for Astro Boy, but not able to turn it off for Epsilon. I think, given the context of both their confrontations and how short they were, I think Pluto could have stopped at Epsilon. the same way he did with
Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, why he lost his mind, I guess,
Yeah.
with Epsilon. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could foil.
I mean, I guess there's I guess some people would argue well, Adam is a child. You look at this child,
What's a child to Pluto though?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's a weird situation.
Maybe we could foil or compare what is Epsilon versus Adam.
Versus Adam?
Yeah,
I would argue Epsilon is more sympathetic.
Well,
I would think so.
If I were to translate it in AI,
yeah.
Think about all the things that he's processed to get to the point where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
The most basic one would be he's a slave to his father figure.
Yeah.
Whereas Epsilon is a father.
Yeah.
In so many. And Adam has none of that.
Yeah.
So he's like, I can't relate to you, Epsilon. You're probably doing exactly what my father's doing to me.
Mm-hmm.
That you're probably doing to all those kids.
Yeah.
And they're just your tools,
Right.
Vasily.
So I cannot believe in you.
I don't believe in you because you're like
all the other
father.
great robots really have beef with Epsilon.
Yeah.
They do.
And maybe he picked up on that.
Yeah.
Because he as a part of destroying them, he also takes in their data, their knowledge. Yeah. He reads them. And so then...
So you figure Epsilon is just this not trustworthy figure.
I think he does...
Or unreliable figure in some way that
a father.
Yeah.
His father.
Right.
Who he starts to doubt.
Yeah.
And so maybe he does lose his mind because he sees his father in Epsilon who has good intentions.
Yeah.
And he wants to believe the best in him. And we all want to believe the best in Epsilon.
Yeah.
We also get kind of nervous with him sometimes. Like the fact that everybody hates him. And he has... what's his end goal with adopting all these kids?
Yeah, you feel like something's there.
Something's there.
Yeah.
But there never was.
No, but they could have if the show was longer. It
Sure.
could have gotten to the point where they show the kids grow older and progress, and they actually can't even feel human because they were raised by a robot.
Yeah.
Right? Where they feel like everything's so logical.
Mm-hmm.
Or we never felt affection because we never knew what it was like because he was always gone or he's detached.
Epsilon was always leaving.
Yeah.
But Epsilon also did a lot of things that meant a lot to what was his name? Vasily?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, couldn't you see at some point if you say how long the show could go, right?
Yeah.
You could see the kids also maybe fostering a hatred or
Sure.
jealousy.
Oh yeah,
and he also did
want
mess
to
up.
explore that. Yeah, I could absolutely see that being
It could be a thing.
a plot point.
And he also messed up with Vasily.
He did.
Vasily got kidnapped.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
He let
he's
him
not
get hurt.
perfect.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not a perfect parent.
And also bend everybody else to go, I gotta go save Vasily. Also, where's Vasily? Everything's about Vasily. And all that.
Yeah.
They would foster a feeling about that.
Right.
Why
Correct.
is everything about Vasily?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who doesn't talk. All he says, Boda, Boda, Boda.
Yeah, exactly.
And they could bully the crap out of Vasily, right?
Yeah.
But they don't.
Surprising they
because
don't.
they're like, well, they don't because for the story.
Yeah.
Right. We don't want to go on a sidebar.
Sure.
But I could see that as the reason why Pluto cannot calm himself because he sees Adam as him, a child,
A child.
a product of everything else.
Okay.
Epsilon was how he is. He does his thing. He's an adult. He is a father.
You're right.
He makes his
I
own.
see it.
Where
Yeah.
Adam is just like, I'm a child. So yeah, it's like, I'm a child. Like, I just want my parents' affection. Adam's like, I get it. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So, that
Like
could
that.
be a strong thing that I just go, yeah, he relates better to Adam, and that's it. You send the right fighter to the right fight.
Right.
Where Epsilon maybe, had the right, but he also wasn't the right fighter because he gave him sympathy at the end because he saw him as a child. He probably did see Pluto as a child.
yeah.
He's like,
because that's ultimately what Pluto was, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
he was absolutely a child.
100%.
Give him some attention, give him some love, give him affection. He goes, I'm softened.
Come on, Abula. Come on, Abula.
Yeah.
But also, I feel so bad for Abula.
Yeah.
Oh, that scene when he holds his, also never show the daughter, but the son's body, and then the head just fucking rolls off. I was like, ooh. And then Paul's like, oh, thank God, it's just a robot. And I was like, yes, but also
That's still like.
but also, if I saw my child's head do that, and I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I would go, oh, thank God, it's just a robot.
Exactly.
Like, bruh, we spent 6 episodes feeling like robots could be human.
Yeah.
Do you not feel bad for this?
I feel
That's so
like
funny.
shit for this.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Huh.
Such great things that you debate in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting. God, yeah. Okay. No, you know what? I redact it. I love the choice that Pluto.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I like
Because
that idea.
I came in with like the same idea as you,
Yeah.
where like this could have been popular, but I like your
Yeah,
thought process.
what a great
on that.
take.
But they
That's a
don't.
good
I guess
take.
they don't do a great job of showcasing that because you have to really dig into that.
You have to really
You
dig into
do.
it.
You
Yeah.
do.
This was also another thing is the final stuff.
Yeah.
So it is hard because you're on a show, you're on a timer, you're recording this thing.
Yeah.
They get that and I was talking once again. Shout out to Max. Going back to Max, who
Shout
read
out to
it,
Max.
right? And yeah, who read it, and can you imagine like reading this arc and getting to the final panel, and the final panel shows you all of the 7 great robots, and then like you have that final image of all of the 7 great robots, and he was like, I was emotionally affected by that, and I was like, oh, that's weird.
I
In
wasn't.
the anime, I wasn't.
Yeah.
But I can see if you're reading it, you get to linger on that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You get to hold the page,
and, like, you're,
and you
you're
go
kinda
at your
taking it
tempo.
in. Yeah.
Correct.
No,
But-
it's just-
But in an anime thing, it's just one after
Yeah.
another.
Right.
That shot, I don't even think lasts like 5
No,
seconds.
no.
And then
Very
and then
quick.
you're out.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I didn't get to sit in this.
Right.
So like,
Well, like that visual key thing that we're talking about with Charlotte and Angel Beats.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't get to sit in this,
Mhm.
you know? And
No,
and
it was very fleeting.
it's very fleeting, which is like a shame because there's so much heft to everything that happened.
Everywhere else, the other episodes, oh my god.
Right.
Yeah,
We spent so much time building that emotional involvement.
exactly.
But this one, it was like, this is probably where it should be the climax, or one of the climax, maybe.
Yeah,
But that's hard to
exactly.
do.
Mhm. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I will say my favorite resolution was actually Brow's resolution. I do like Brow's resolution of like Brow's getting free because of Astro Boy,
Yes.
which is a classic tie-in to his older character,
Mhm.
who eventually sides with Astro Boy because he kind of sees that not like all humans are bad.
Right.
And then but still ultimately being like, I'm gonna get mine though, you know, like I'm gonna get mine, and like, you know, grabbing the president of Thracia,
Oh yeah.
and then he's like, but no, you're not worth it, and this is a problem. And Teddy Roosevelt being like, what a bummer. I thought you would be one of the people who was going to be on my like
man.
robotic crusade.
Yeah.
And he's like, sorry to disappoint you. Throws the lance, even though removing the lance kills him. I think they bring that up. Like
Mhm.
Mhm.
the only reason he's kept alive is one, like humans kind of want to study him,
Right.
but also humans don't want to go anywhere near him because he kills people.
Right.
And then like, yeah, he's like, I know this is keeping me alive, and he's probably sitting in that. He's probably thinking like, one day I'm gonna break out of here, and humans will get theirs.
Mm-hmm.
But when he finally like does break out, it's like, I'm gonna die soon, but like that Astro Boy kid knew what he was talking about. Changed my mind. So you know what? Die, Teddy Roosevelt. And I thought that was like a really cool resolution.
Yeah.
This is a really, really cool resolution that ties to his original character. I think that's what makes it a little bit more impactful.
Right.
So I don't know. It's really fascinating. So you clearly have problems with. Is it a similar thing? Like
The
we don't get to like sit in that.
No, just how they threw in so much. It actually made me think of Evangelion,
Mm-hmm.
where they threw in so many new things. That's why I said they built the world, then suddenly all these new rules came in.
Yeah.
These new characters, like where the fuck did teddy bear come from?
Yeah.
I feel like y'all are trying to throw this metaphor beginning. We
Mhm.
only recently got to United States of Thracia, and
Yeah.
also Teddy Roosevelt.
Very
So
literal, which
they-
is so funny.
They threw in all these, and also when they've been so good at the figurative stuff, right?
Yeah,
the
right.
metaphors,
Right.
and the artistry of it. It's like it felt like the ending had to come. Like they were like, "Hey, you got like 3 episodes to wrap this up,"
Mhm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
they still don't. I think they lost the artistry at that point.
Sure.
The rush made you question a lot of things. Like, wait, actually, Paul was asking me like, why did Brow kill the teddy bear? Like, why didn't he kill the president? Like, wait, why? I don't understand. And I was like, you know what? He'd been following this whole time, but up to this point, suddenly these characters make these almost uncharacteristic changes. Same with the conversation we just had about Pluto.
Yeah.
And it was like,
it seems uncharacteristic.
It does. And like, I didn't think anything of it because it made sense to me, kind of like the same Pluto conversation. Yeah. But then I was like, if I have to,
you have to work for it. Yeah,
it's like a joke that you have to explain. It doesn't.
And it might be the same thing with Brow. You have to.
They could have did a better job, like setting that up. Or
we also never find out
with that more.
Who is Brow. What is Brow?
Yeah. I kind of like him as a Hannibal Lecter. Like you did this very bad thing. You're the only robot that like killed a human. Kind of just sit here and we'll talk to you about like why would a robot kill? And he's like, "Oh, you're interested in that, huh?" Like he was very happy to be like, "Oh yes, are you gonna be like me?"
His interrogations were very fun.
Yeah, they were super fun.
Oh yeah. No, there were so many things that I was like,
Brow's cool.
Yeah,
Brow is cool.
Every time I saw Brow, I think it was the right feeling of like, I'm kind of excited.
Yeah, exactly.
You know you're in for some shit with Brow, and you're just like,
I need to hear what Brow is about
to say.
To me.
Oh, we chose to come to Brow. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, how bad has it gotten?
Can I touch you? That's what a heart feels like. I was like, oh, bro. Like crazy. You're so tight.
Yeah.
So, second favorite character?
It's like top 8, you know.
Top 8
The Great 8.
The Great 8 Brow was in there.
That's another Patreon thing is we could do our character tier list of Pluto.
That would be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun. Okay. At the very least, post it on Instagram.
Yeah.
What'd you say was second again?
My second is North number 2.
North number 2.
Although I was only doing the greatest robots when I asked you this question.
Right.
If I had to like be actual characters, I think Sahad is my number 2.
Really?
Not necessarily Pluto, but like Sahad himself. So what I like about Sahad, I know you're shaking your head. What I like about Sahad is we don't get a lot of we don't get a lot of like characterization of Sahad.
No.
Sahad is more of like an idea.
He's like a white bread idealistic.
He certainly is that. He certainly is that.
Like,
but
he wouldn't harm a soul.
But he certainly drives a lot of stuff forward, and it gives me the feeling of have you ever watched the classic Hitchcock film Rebecca?
Yeah.
Okay, so I love Rebecca. Rebecca's so cool because Rebecca is not a character in the movie, but Rebecca is
about that.
Yeah, but Rebecca is very important to driving things forward. This show is called Pluto. Now, granted, we actually see Pluto, but Pluto is also Sahad. And like, Sahad is more talked about in like memory. We don't really like, Sahad never actually returns to the original body of Sahad.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't even exist anymore, right? Even though like he's led to believe that it does still exist.
Oh, okay. So I always had issues and discomfort with the image of Sahad. We can come back to that though.
Is it colorism?
No.
Okay.
It's exactly how he was portrayed. I was like,
interesting.
Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable, but we can.
Okay.
I do want to come back.
I do want to hear it.
You sound like you really love like how they depicted him, and I was like, he made me extremely uncomfortable.
Really?
Yeah, everything about him, I was like, I distrust everything.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe in the same way Tenma looked at Adam and was like, just AI, just fake. But I didn't see. I didn't see Adam. I don't think it wasn't like that. I see Sahad as fake. But I did distrust him the entire time. And so
ultimately Sahad is capable of hate.
That's fine.
Yeah. Ultimately.
Yeah. Which hate wasn't the thing I'm scared of. It's deceit I'm scared of. And it seemed like he was lying to himself a lot. And so we can come back to that. But I also thought about his depiction was extremely similar to the mother of the composer.
Oh yeah, the North number 2's mentor.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
the depiction is the same. Feel the flowers. She's there. He even has a matronly look to him because he's got like a
Yeah, he has the thing around him. Yeah.
smiling, sweet, and then it's an image that fades away. Androgynous too.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was supposed to be depicted as like beautiful. It's like everyone saw him as beautiful. They were like, oh, he's actually kind of attractive. Like, oh, the local flower girl is like, oh, maybe, oh, he's a robot. But it's like, I distrusted his whole image. In the same way that I thought maybe the mom tried to kind of deceive her son into seeing her a certain way.
Yeah.
But then the reality is, oh, she really did abandon him. Or no, she didn't abandon him. So then I was like, but I trusted the mother from that perspective. But then with Sahad, I was just like, I don't think I trust you. I feel like it's a facade. Like, I feel like
always suspicious of Sahad.
I always was. And I
really?
Yeah. And that could be a viewer interpretation, right?
Yeah.
Which is fun.
For sure.
Because some people would probably like, oh, he seems so sweet.
Yeah, because I like an optimistic character. I think we get so many just because of the excuse that it's real.
Yeah, but what destroyed me, like even more about like solidified my concern.
Like everyone has dark thoughts. Everyone is a broody, evil person.
Was the tulip that took everybody else's health, and so that everything else around it died.
Yeah,
and it was the only thing that flourished. That's where I was kind of like,
wait a minute.
Yeah, like you may be the root of evil, or a root of evil,
right?
And that's where I was like, I don't think I believe his intentions were ever pure.
Sure.
I don't think he's going to be capable of being pure. Then he destroys Epsilon. It's like Epsilon actually is pure.
Yeah.
But here you go destroying it, and then he doesn't destroy Adam. But it was like, we already
have I can see all that.
Complexity is great too. All the layers and all the caveats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think.
But I mistrusted Sahad from the very beginning.
I can understand your position on that.
I was like, he looked ugly to me.
I think I wanted to like believe in Sahad.
Yeah.
Right. Like I see the signs that you're pointing out, but I think there was like a belief in that, like I want to believe that Sahad is good. And that kind of overpowered like my suspicions of him.
Yeah.
But I get it.
Obsession is also a strong thing in storytelling. Obsession is always a problem. Frankenstein is a example.
Love Frankenstein. Yeah, shout out to Frankenstein.
We stand Frankenstein.
Yeah.
That's always been a problem. Obsession. It's never going to lead to good things. Even when it produces something beautiful, like the composer's music. The obsession, right? The end piece that he took, hounded through it and got it. What did it get him? A lost son.
Yeah.
Right.
God, how sad was it that he was like, North number 2, it's time for your lessons.
You're going to be late.
You're going to be late. It's that time.
That's where I lost my mind. I was losing my mind.
Yeah, tears started flowing as that guy was sitting in his chair.
Awful.
And North number 2 is jumping into the clouds because, like,
And he sings his song in horrible voice. Oh my God,
he's humming that song?
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, I messed up.
Yeah, I was so done.
I'm dead. Oh no, I wasn't ready. This anime got hands. It's got 6 of them with North number 2.
This anime got 6 hands.
Oh God, yeah.
Fucking swinging, I wasn't ready.
That's the thing. Like, it was.
Yeah. Gut wrenching.
Yeah.
Really, really gut wrenching. And you see the throughway. So, like, I could see why Travis has a conflict with this anime because, like, I can't speak to it because I haven't finished iRobot. I cannot speak to if this does it better than iRobot or vice versa.
Right.
Like, but I also don't care about that.
Right.
But like, that's the throughway is like, it's clearly inspired by it. These are separate stories with separate individuals, very different people, different backgrounds, different robots.
Yeah.
And these are stories that we learn about them. It's really interesting. And some are better than others. And then but also ultimately Pluto is a whole. And I think that's where it falls apart a little bit.
Yeah.
Very little.
Yeah.
Or I won't say fall apart. It's more like it's a chink in its armor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that's a good way to put it.
It has to be. There has to be something, because otherwise it'd been a flawless show, and I'm like, there's got to be something that falls apart.
Yeah.
I don't believe in flawless.
I agree.
There's always something, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that like it's bad or anything. It's just like
Sure.
there's something that just kind of lack a little bit.
I mean,
you know, it's fine.
Gesik's breakdown, slow breakdown,
Yeah.
or whatever,
Ooh, a pot boiler.
reminded me of Dexter, where the show.
I've never watched Dexter.
He has a slow breakdown over
Mhm.
time, and then you start going, that's uncharacteristic of him. He never would have done these things. The whole
Mm-hmm.
thing that we loved about him was he was meticulous,
Right.
Sure.
and
Yeah, I've heard that.
and then he just has these, like, he starts making decisions that you're like, you've never
Yeah.
done that. It's now unbelievable.
Right.
Yeah.
Pluto does not do that with Gesik's character. Everything's believable.
Yes.
His breakdown
Yeah.
is so subtle that
It's so
you're
subtle.
like, that's like I was talking about earlier. I was like, man, it's so small detail.
Right.
Yeah.
But when it comes into like full fruition, you're just like, I fully believe this moment that's happening right now.
100%.
And then the fact that he learns hatred and, kills somebody, it's like, I fully believe this.
Gesich's entire arc with is it Dr. Haas?
Hoffman.
Or Hoffman. No. Who's the guy that he was like driving the car and he was an anti-robot
Not a doctor.
He was not a doctor. But he was the anti like robot guy.
Yeah.
And then
The
ultimately
Ku Klux Klan
Was
of
it
Mr.
robots.
Haas?
Huh?
I think it was Mr. Haas and his like
Yeah.
and then him ultimately pleading with Gesich to protect him and his family.
Not
Yeah.
him.
It was his family.
family.
Oh,
Yeah.
ultimately
He
his
said,
family.
Just
Okay.
please, if nothing else,
Which
protect
once
my
again
wife and my
a fatherly thing. Very,
Yes. Yeah.
once again a fatherly thing.
Mhm.
and
Uh,
admittedly flawed.
Yeah.
When
Yes.
he admits
Theme
he's
never
flawed.
drops. Theme
Yeah.
never drops. It's like perfect all the way through, at least with that thing.
Beautiful,
and-
honestly.
yeah.
And
it makes you love them more because they're flawed.
yeah. Yeah, he's ultimately let's be honest with it. He's like ultimately a KKK member, but we have a weird sympathy for that like moment.
Right? Who?
Yeah,
Who? I never thought I am sympathetic to, only mildly sympathetic to a KKK member.
Yeah.
I didn't want him dead. I did not at any point want him dead.
But it was
what an
because of that
amazing
situation.
accomplishment, though, of storytelling.
Yeah.
That I don't want him dead. I would go, fuck him.
And ultimately,
Exactly.
I think his perspective changes after that moment. It when Gesich pleads with him, like after learning hatred
Yeah.
and realizing everything that has happened, he's like, "Does the hatred ever go away?" And like,
God,
ooh,
that one, yeah.
So everything he said to him as he's laying there, he's like, does it ever go away?
yeah,
And then that's the thing I'm scared of most is like, it won't ever, I can't ever get rid of it.
yeah.
And it makes me the thing I'm scared of most.
It's similar to the One Piece thing.
Mhm.
If you remember the sunfish stuff.
Yes.
I'm referencing it like a completely different thing, and I could go down that rabbit hole, but I won't.
Crack open
like-
another 2 hours.
Yeah, crack open
I know,
another 2
seriously.
hours. But like, yeah, it's like,
I have to pee.
oh, go for it. We'll take this time to take a break.
So, I didn't grow up with anime, but in 4th grade, all what I remember is like the boys in my class were super into Dragon Ball. But I didn't have access to cable or anything, so I couldn't actually watch any episodes. But they talked about it in such fervorance that I asked them, like, so what happens? Like, I actually got caught up on episodes because they would tell me the stories. Be like, well, he did this, and then after that, like Cell comes in, and I was like, and they did, the kid storytelling, right? I mean, I didn't know that's what was happening, but I asked them, like, what's going on? Like, tell me the characters, tell me the story. So then one day, I was driving down to Jacksonville with my dad to celebrate Christmas with the family, and we stopped at a hotel. And he went to sleep. I stayed up and I watched Toonami for the first time, and it was Dragon Ball. And I was like, oh, I recognize this. I recognize this Goku character because they spent all of class drawing these characters instead of taking notes. They were just drawing themselves as Dragon Ball characters or their favorite Dragon Ball characters. And so I was so excited. I was like, oh, okay, I'm watching this Dragon Ball they speak so highly of for the first time. So then when I came back from Christmas break and I tell them like, oh guys, listen, I watched Dragon Ball recently. They're like, Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z? I was so embarrassed. I was like, well, I don't know. How do I tell the difference? They're like, does he have a monkey tail? Yeah, he had a monkey tail. And they're like, oh, you watched Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z. I was so embarrassed. But it was my first intro to being able to talk about things with friends of mine that wasn't about sports. I mean, I was a tomboy, so I was like, the only thing I could do is play sports with them, kickball, soccer, or whatever. Not be one of those girls that want to play jump rope or something. But it was something I could bond with my friends over. And that was the reason that I started learning how to draw. Like I started borrowing books from the library to like learn how to draw mangas. Like I got into the storytelling arc of it. I was like, let me write my own. I had one that I used to draw that was about a girl who owned a dinosaur, and I was like, I took all the art styles from anime because it was such a great free flowing art style that also had a lot of rules to it that taught me about angles and lighting and shading and stuff. And it was so cool. And I got to share that with these guys that are they're fourth graders with me, and they care so much about the artistry of it because they're like, oh, it's so great. Like you see him, he's strong, he's powerful. Look at all those muscles you see there. It's like if you ever look at a kid's artwork, these kids have muscles that they're drawing themselves as. You know, they see themselves as strong characters. That's what they want to be. And it was so cool to like see that they drew this influence from Dragon Ball Z because they're like, I want to be like that. I want to be strong. I want to overcome every obstacle that comes my way. And this is how I picture myself. And they kept that mentality, and that's how they communicated too. Was when Dragon Ball Z taught them how to communicate to other characters, your teammates, to work together. Those same themes that came up, drawing strength and power from other sources, was such a strong theme. And it was so cool to learn that through, ultimately a kids show. It was one thing that I was able to connect with people that otherwise I wouldn't have, and I didn't even have to watch the show, which is the craziest thing. I actually don't think I've ever watched an episode of Dragon Ball Z. I think it was, they told me the story so closely that I felt like I understood the story. So yeah. Thanks for creating such a great thing for people to connect with. I mean, this is like 20 years ago, so through the decades, and rest in peace.
So yeah,
That's what we're gonna do.
Go, I mean, right? What are we doing?
Do you so like let's round this conversation to a close. Has this anime like cracked your top 10? Has it cracked your top 25? Like where does this rank on your anime that we've watched for the podcast? Because I think like it's always fun to gauge like, oh my god, that's like instantly my top 25. Yeah. Like I feel like Summertime Rendering did that for me.
Yeah. That's like very high up there.
Is Pluto one of the greats that we've watched? For you, Rob?
So I think it is one of my favorite things we've watched for the podcast for sure. Yeah. Right. Like the other one would be like Summertime Rendering, right? Yeah. But Pluto, I think like is like the number one for me right now.
Cool.
Does it crack like a top 10 or
Tommy?
I bet you that picked it up too. I'm gonna leave it in there. Does it crack like my top 10 or top 25? That's a hard question for me because that is something that is ever changing. Mm-hmm. Depending on how I wake up in the morning. Mm-hmm. But I would say that it is very high on my list of anime. Like I did really enjoy this from front to back. Even though like we did have like some reservations which is common between like all of us, right? Sure. Kind of putting out the flaw there. It is still something that like I would wholeheartedly recommend to people. It is still something that like I will think about for a while. Yeah. It was a show that like for the first time in a while that like I almost immediately wanted to just rewatch it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like
See what I missed?
I got to the end and I was like, okay, now that I have all of this in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
I bet if I watch this again, it might be like a slightly different experience. Knowing
Absolutely.
right? And that's always fun,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So I'm kind of like looking for the chance to just like watch it again. Like, who can I like throw this on to be like, hey, let's go watch Pluto, so like I can watch this again.
Do you already have an idea who you would show this to?
I mean, I might show it to Drew.
Yeah, I could see.
I could see this being like a fun Drew pick.
Yeah.
But I mean, if anybody else is down staring at our producer back here, to watch it, I'll do it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What about you, Jenny?
So I have associated closely to whatever we've watched recently, or that like kind of fits in a similar genre,
Mhm.
and that would be Summertime Rendering.
Mhm.
It kicks Summertime Rendering's butt out of my list.
Mm.
That's crazy.
And I really enjoyed Summertime
Mhm.
Rendering. You guys know I binged it.
Oh yeah.
Like I took off work
Summertime
to watch
rendering
it.
rules.
And it was
rules so hard.
fantastic. And Pluto demolished it.
yeah.
Dang.
It threw it out the door. Paranoia Agent was my number one
Okay.
from what we've watched.
Does it beat Paranoia?
No.
Agent?
Okay.
It doesn't.
Cool.
It's second to it though.
I
It's
get that, yeah.
right behind it because
For
I
sure.
couldn't find a flaw.
In Paranoia Agent?
Paranoia
Yeah, it's
Agent.
hard.
It's because it's its own thing. It's
Yeah.
also a genre of its own that you can't really go, you made
Yeah.
some mistakes there.
Yes.
And there were some mistakes that we could kind of feel as a story, as a genre,
Yeah.
for
Pluto.
Pluto.
Yeah.
But it was so freaking good, so thought provoking, so
It's
beautiful.
very thought provoking.
And so such a well told story.
Mm-hmm.
That there's no way I would say that was an anime that I would put like it's I'm gonna remember it forever.
Yeah, I think
That's
it's such a.
it's a very
What an introduction to Astro Boy.
That's awesome.
yeah
For me, at least.
yeah it's gonna be number 2 on my list right now.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
And we've seen quite a few.
Is that number 2 on my list?
Number 2, and they were Rob takes. Let's go.
Yeah.
Because definitely, yeah, Paranoia Agent.
Oh my god, I still
Definitely
lose my mind
Paranoia
over
Agent.
Paranoia Agent.
Definitely,
such a
definitely
fun
love Paranoia Agent.
watch.
But I had seen that already.
I think that's what it is for me too. Like
Yeah.
that was a rewatch for me.
It was a rewatch
Right?
from
But
me.
even still, like it is.
but it is very cool. I think that's part of the fun of this cast that we've done. I think that's one of my favorite things that I love about doing this podcast is like I never know what either of you two are going to throw at me,
Mhm.
and I'm like, okay, yeah, bring it on.
Yeah.
You know, just like Brando,
Yeah.
bring it on. And then like I'm caught off guard. It's got 6 hands. You know, I get messed up.
Mm.
And I don't know, I'm pleasantly surprised, and it's very cool. And then, yeah, Pluto is not normally the genre that I like step into a lot. I'm more in the filmic side when it comes to sci-fi
Right.
noir. But I don't know, to see it in anime done that well, incredible.
Very cool.
Incredible. So very big fan. I don't know if I put it ahead of Summertime Rendering. I'm pretty floored by Summertime Rendering
Okay.
in a weird way. I'll say it.
I feel like we need to give you more time because, like, clearly you was like a little lukewarm at first. Then, like, after a few days, you started to warm up more on Pluto. So, like, I feel like
it gets better. It gets
He's-
over time.
we give him like 2 more weeks. By next cast, this is number 1 for him.
No, I don't think so because that's not
Hmm.
Asher's personality. Asher is like he needs that warmth, and Pluto's cold. It is so.
I think Asher is capable of just cold.
No, he's not.
Welcome to the JSB Asher cast.
We are going to psychologically analyze Asher in real time.
In real time. Absolutely.
No. Asher needs warmth and comfort of some kind, and this one took it all away.
There are 2 people in you. I create the meme. There are two creatures in you.
Listen,
one is Sahad and one is Pluto.
I believe in dark.
See, that's
Asher.
why he likes Sahad, because Sahad was like the warmth, the only piece of warmth that actually stayed warm the whole time. Everyone else was questionable. Even everybody. So I'm like, I can see why it made him uncomfortable. Whereas I'm like, like, yes, get dark. Break.
I mean, the first film I showed Rob was
I Saw the Devil. What's that?
it's a very cold movie.
Yeah. I believe in dark Asher.
I haven't seen. No, dark can still be warm. But this was a cold dark.
That was
cold.
a
The
cold
robots.
movie.
Yeah, it was really cold.
Actually introduced himself to me as like a cold individual.
He's not though.
You're right. You're right. I'm not.
He's both.
But I think Asher is actually quite warm.
He's a
Even when he wants to be like cold, he has to like force it.
He appreciates.
Almost like the robot drinking the tea and the coffee.
He sips on the cold every once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he appreciates it. It's like it's a cathartic.
appreciation.
It's a cathartic
Okay.
thing.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
It reminds him of what it feels like to be the opposite.
Mm.
And he doesn't want to be that.
I understand.
Anyway, Asher Psychology 101.
That's what
Asher
That's not what we're here for. No, that's probably why, and I think Summertime Rendering had so much warmth to it.
It does.
There's a lot of comfort food moments
There is.
in Summertime Rendering, whereas I don't think Pluto offered that. Maybe
No.
That's why.
Pretty grim.
Very.
Very grim.
Yeah.
Pretty grim.
There's a-
Ultimately hopeful.
Huh?
It is ultimately hopeful, though.
Yes,
Ultimately.
but hope is also it's a weapon.
Yeah.
Right.
It is.
Hunger Games.
Yeah.
He said, "What you do is you give him hope,
Yeah.
and then take it away." You can't have a more powerful emotion than give him hope and then take it away. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then Pluto absolutely does that over and over and
It
over
does.
and over again, and it can get tiring. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I
Why it's a
think-
draining show? Come on, Jenny.
Huh?
I was explaining to you that the show was draining.
And we bring it back to the beginning, y'all.
I'll never.
It was draining for you.
Yeah, it was.
Whereas it's actually invigorating for me.
Yeah.
I was like, look alive!
Okay. Yeah. So let me stew on it, and we'll see. Remember, I will ask you guys for your Pluto character tier lists eventually. So
Okay.
make sure that's ready.
That's
Think
our
about it.
homework.
I think
Homework.
it's pretty easy.
Give it some thought.
Yeah.
Are we ready to know what the next anime is?
Yes!
Okay.
Asher, what are we watching next?
I am not ready, but we can't delay this any further.
Okay. So
He's
the
excited.
25th of this month,
Oh my god.
our frequent collaborators, we will be watching one of my favorite films of all time. We will be watching,
Film.
The Night of Short Walk-On Girl.
Huh?
Let's go!
It is probably my second favorite anime film of all time, right behind Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time. It is made by one of the goats of anime, Yuasa. But one of the more interesting things you can consume before actually watching this movie is an anime series called Tatami Galaxy. And that is what I am picking.
Tatami Galaxy is what we're watching.
Tatami Galaxy.
That is so cool because I have not seen Tatami Galaxy.
Yeah.
But I fucking love Night of Short Walking Girl.
Hell yeah.
That is like easily a top 5 great movie.
This art style is very reminiscent of
Dadaism?
Dadaism. Yeah. And
Boy,
also,
I can't wait to talk about art in this movie.
Yeah, this is extremely artistic. Interesting. Also, Asian Kung Fu Generation. All their album covers are like this.
Done by the same people who do the art for the book covers of Tatami Galaxy. The author who wrote Tatami Galaxy, Night of Short Walk-On Girl, all that stuff.
So we're watching Tatami Galaxy.
We are watching Tatami Galaxy,
Okay.
and I'll save the through line of Tatami Galaxy and Night of Short Walk-On Girl for the next cast. But I thought it was a perfect time
Yeah.
to do that. I was thinking of like other anime, but then I was like, wait, we're showing at Nakama on the 25th, the Night of Short Walk-On Girl. And the timing of this cast and my decision perfectly
When
coincides
is
with
that? When is the showing?
it. It'll be on the 25th, which is a Monday.
Okay.
And if any of you can make it out, there'll be a ticket raffle where I will give away the movie on Blu-ray as well.
Ooh.
Great movie for like a bar setting too.
Perfect for a bar setting. Grab a drink.
Going out a night of the town.
Yeah, grab a drink and enjoy a fantastic movie.
Mm-hmm.
But leading up until then, if you're with us, watch Tatami Galaxy itself.
Okay.
11 episodes of early Yuasa. It's wild that he would go from that to making other things like Devilman Crybaby, Ride Your Wave. Yeah, baby, Ride Your Wave. Mans doesn't miss. Mans explores so many different genres. Very excited.
Interesting.
I'm
looking at this art, and
it's going to be unlike anything we've watched so far.
Yeah, it's ugly and beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, it's out there.
Which is why it was perfect for Devilman, honestly.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, now let's do our classic goodbyes. Rob, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Zenosuke, ZNOSUKE. I retweet Umusume artwork. That is what I've become.
Anything upcoming for you?
Not really.
Okay.
At this point in time.
Okay.
So, about it.
All right. What about you, Jenny? Where can people find you, and do you have anything upcoming?
Yeah. So I have a cybersecurity podcast also, aside from this. And it's called Hack Fit Highlights. I just started my own IT company. So you can find it on Twitter at CMITSWJAX. And that's where you'll see upcoming things about cybersecurity. I mean, you guys all saw the outages from AT&T and stuff. And then there was the Change Healthcare breach that happened recently. So we'll cover all those kinds of stories on this podcast and really break it down in like easy to understand, digestible terms. So that's my thing. I want to make cybersecurity not like accessible to everybody. And other than that, leaderboard number 2, we should have its opening in the next coming months.
The new leaderboard?
The new leaderboard over in Mandarin in Jacksonville. And you might find me there because my band will be playing their opening weekend.
Let's go.
What's the name of your band? Do you guys have a
Dish
band?
Belly.
That's incredible.
It's the water that you get on your belly when you wash dishes. And it just collects there. Because you're like leaning on the sink. It's called Dish Belly.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other than that, you're gonna find me here.
Hell yeah.
Oh, or Nakama. Oh, sake tasting. I'm gonna be at the sake tasting on at Nakama on the 18th. It's gonna be they're gonna be bringing back one of the favorited experts of sake, Andrew. He was like one of our first ones that we ever came. He was like I think the second one. He's coming back around, and it's always a good time.
Yeah.
Also, really cool thing. My husband Paul is going keto right now, so I put in a request if they could make the food that accompanies the sake keto friendly, and they're accommodating that. So if you guys have any dietary restrictions, absolutely ask if they can accommodate that. There are so many different options: gluten free, keto friendly. Just ask. The worst they can say is nah. Yep.
Correct.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then for me, you can find me at Twitter, twitter.com/Pinoy Grigio, 1 for the first I. And then I also stream on Twitch. I've been streaming Virtue's Last Reward. Have you heard of Virtue's Last Reward?
Nope.
Okay.
It's a wild ride.
Anime Saw.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
I'm out.
It rocks.
No.
I can't wait to cry.
You cried during Saw?
When it's anime. When it's anime. I saw Luna, and I immediately was like, oh, is it going to happen?
I understand.
Am I going to get messed up?
If you ask that, the answer is always yes.
So I'm on there, and then I'm on Instagram periodically, and doing a little bit of reading again because of iRobot and stuff like that. So if you have a Goodreads, you can find me there. Yeah, otherwise, I'll catch you at Nakama's screening of Night a Short Walk On Girl. And I'll catch you on this cast. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Akira Toriyama. Man, I wouldn't be who I am today without Dragon Ball, honestly. Some of my earliest memories of anime and getting into anime is coming home from school and like watching Dragon Ball Z, right? And everything else that is on that Toonami lineup. But like it was Dragon Ball that I like connected with friends over, right? Because it's just like, oh my God, what's happening with like Frieza? What's happening with like the Cell Saga? Like we're all like at recess, like screaming, like going Super Saiyan. You know what I mean? Like it's silly shit like that like I have very fond memories over. And even in like the video game space, right? Akira Toriyama did like the artwork for Chrono Trigger, right? Dragon Quest, things like that. I may not be an RPG player without playing those games, right? And thinking about the artwork from those games that like influenced like me wanting to learn how to draw. And some of my earliest artworks was of like fan art of Dragon Ball or Dragon Quest and things like that. So it really, his work means a lot to me. Even though like Dragon Ball as a whole, like I'm not the hugest fan of either. But it is just a fun talking point. It's just really, you know, there's a lot of energy behind it that speaks to me and lets me like relate to some of the friends around me. And even more recently, my nephew who just turned 10, like he got into anime, not through me, surprisingly. It was just like one of the schoolyard things, right? And just one weekend I go over to my sister's house and he's just like, he starts talking about Dragon Ball. And then he has that moment of like, you know, you can't relate to your parents because they're not into the nerd thing that you're in, but I'm the cool uncle, right? And I'm like, boy, what do you know about the Frieza saga? And then he's like, excuse me? And we have this whole back and forth of just like talking about Frieza, talking about Cell, Kid Buu, Gogeta, like all this whole thing. And my sister's over on the side like, what are they even talking about? It is a different language. But it's really cool how like 30 years later, 40 years later, however long it's been for Dragon Ball, it is still like a starter kit, as it were, for like upcoming anime fans, right? And it every generation is just like on that Dragon Ball kick, you know? So like his influence, it is prevalent everywhere, you know, not just in the US. Like there's a big Latino community as well for Dragon Ball. You see multiple like countries like issue statements over his death, right? That is how much this means to so many people, right? So it is a very sad loss. I mourn his death. And you know, that's kind of it, honestly. Yeah. Rest in peace.
Bye.